Welcome, 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 welcome. How is everyone? Um, so tonight I wanted to talk about something a little different, a little more literature analysis related to Ice and Fire. Something that I've never really heard anyone talk about, but I mean it's something that was kind of like, I mean obviously there's certain things that are rather obvious about it on one level, but then you kind of have to examine things to really see what George R. R. Martin was doing. But I want to talk about Julius Caesar, the Shakespeare play. Um, Recently, I've been rereading A Game of Thrones, and I was rereading the prologue, and you kind of misremember the prologue because of the show, and the show's prologue kind of like um, dominates the memory. But in the original prologue, Waymar Royce is um, is fighting his fight, and it's a long battle. It's actually a pretty good fight in the book versus the show where it's over pretty quick. And while he's battling this other, there's a circle of others around him, and they all watch the fight. And then when Waymar Royce loses the battle, he gets stabbed, and then his sword breaks. All the others come in and proceed to execute Waymar. They all come in and start slashing him as a group. Um, and this, of course, and as I say, it's pretty obvious that it's like Julius Caesar, right? Like everybody comes in and starts stabbing him all at once. And this is a kind of a repeated thing throughout Ice and Fire. So, when we get to the Red Wedding, Robb Stark, it's not just that he's killed by one person. He's shot over and over again, and then Roose Bolton comes in and stabs him, and then they continue to shoot him and stab him a bunch after he's dead. And then of course we get to Jon when he's killed with his mutiny. It's not just one person that stabs him; they're stabbed over and over again. And then of course we have the ridiculous ending where Varys kills Kevin, and then the little birds come out and they all come in and stab him at the end. Now, with regards to Jon, Jon's assassination is the most like Julius Caesar, and of course, like the situation with Julius Caesar is the reason you have everyone do it together is that no single person can really be attributed to be the killer. And so there's a clear like political reason for why a conspiracy would want to have every single person come in and stab them. And this is why Julius Caesar was stabbed by everyone. They kind of come in and no one knows who killed Julius Caesar, though Suetonius or whatever will claim that one person's blade did it. But no, like they're all implicated together when they do that. And it makes sense with the Night's Watch. It doesn't really it makes some sense with Robb, not as much, because they're all in on it, so they're all kind of guilty. But then you get to the sandwich, the bread of the sandwich. We've got our prologue and our epilogue. Prologue of Game of Thrones and our epilogue of A Dance with Dragons. There was no fucking reason for why the others all came in with their swords and went to Waymar Royce. And there was no fucking reason why all those little birds came in and started stabbing Kevin. There's none. Like, like, do the little birds care who's implicated? Like, but, but there's an additional reason why George R. R. Martin is using the Julius Caesar parallel when it comes to these scenes, and I want to bring up the Julius Caesar play here. So, and this is an important an important passage, and it's important when thinking about why George R. R. Martin is paralleling a Song of Ice and Fire to Julius Caesar over and over and over again. And so here we have this line from Brutus, and he says, he's talking to Cassius, and he says, "Of course, will seem too bloody, Gaius Cassius, to cut the head off and then hack the limbs, like wrath and death and envy afterwards. For Antony is but a limb of Caesar." And here it is. "Let's be sacrificers, but not butchers, Gaius. We all stand up against the spirit of Caesar. And in the spirit of men there is no blood. Oh, that we could come by Caesar's spirit and not dismember Caesar. But alas, Caesar must bleed for it. And gentle friends, let's kill him boldly, but not wrathfully. Let's carve him as a dish fit for the gods. Not hew him as a carcass fit for hounds." Now, this is the interesting thing about what they're saying about Caesar. They're killing Caesar as a sacrifice. He is a they all love Caesar. Brutus loves Caesar. Brutus loves him. He is sacrificing Caesar for the Republic, is this scene, all right? In fact, it's not just sacrifice. It is a solemn religious act. Let's carve him as a dish fit for the gods. And so in all of these scenes that George R. R. Martin is carving out, even though it's completely impractical, like why are the others coming in with all of their blades and having like a dozen others like, you know, stab Waymar Royce? Why is Varys having all of these little birds come in? Why is John being like, you know, well, John's the one that makes the most sense, but you know, why is Robb? And it's not just that like there's perhaps no logic in the story for it, like all the little birds coming in. There's no logic to that, but there's this sense. What George R. R. Martin is saying is that these are sacrifices. These are sacrifices. And if you look at these scenes, like Varys doesn't dislike Kevin. He doesn't. In fact, he thinks Kevin is actually a really good leader and he has nothing against him. However, Kevin must be sacrificed for the cause. The people in the Night's Watch, a lot of them like John. They do. They like him. However, he was making bad decisions, and so they need to sacrifice him. Even the phrase, like, they had nothing against Robb Stark as a person, but the honor of the house and all of this was there, and so he is sacrificed. With Waymar, I don't know if the others know anything about Waymar, if they would like him or whatever. But, whatever cause it is, there is a sacrifice kind of idea. But also, there's something creepy to this now. So now all of these things, all of these events, whether we're talking about Waymar or Robb or John or Kevin, they're blood sacrifices. They're blood sacrifices to a god because we're paralleling Julius Caesar. Now, this might just be only, let's make the scene creepier. Maybe there's no logic to it. Like, does Varys believe in any gods? Is he really sacrificing anything to the gods? I mean, he's sacrificing it to a cause. Are the people in the Night's Watch, like, are they sacrificing to a god? I mean, I guess they could be, if they all made an oath before Heart Trees and John is betraying the oath, in a sense, they're sacrificing to gods. Most of them are to the faith of the Seven, so they're sacrificing to the faith of the Seven because they made oaths to the faith of the Seven. The most interesting is probably what about the others? Like, why is this initial scene a sacrifice to gods? Like, aren't they the cold gods? Who is above them? Like, why is this why is this initial scene a sacrifice? But of course, it kind of even goes beyond this, where because the whole idea of having all of these people come in together to stab is that there's no individual person that is implicated in a murder. That the blame is spread in a sacrifice. And in fact, you no longer you need to call it a murder. It's not a murder. It's a sacrifice. And George is making statements about war, like, oh, when we sacrifice children in war, sacrifice soldiers in war, it's not considered murder. It's not considered, and when you kill other people, that's not considered murder. These are sacrifices for the god of patriotism. There's able to twist this around. Cassius and Brutus are convincing themselves that their murder is not murder. Their murder is sacrifice. Their murder is for something else. It's and it's the same with the men of the Night's Watch, or even probably even Varys. It's not murder. It's for this higher power. It's for this higher god that we're sacrificing people to. Now, bringing it all the way back to the beginning, though, it's very difficult to understand like what the others are doing. Like, what are they sacrificing to? And why is the sacrifice parallel, this Julius Caesar parallel, made in the opening chapter of the entire story? And I don't know. I don't know. But there's some funny things also about like the idea of sacrifice, and I don't know if I've figured it out or if what George's message is, but after the collective sacrifice of the others in the first chapter, we go to Bran 1, the second chapter in a Game of Thrones, where Ned is sacrificing Garrett. He's cutting in a sacrificing circle. There's a circle. He does it in the middle of like an old men sacrifice circle where there was a tree stump there, right, to the old gods where they used to sacrifice people. And he proceeds to cut off Garrett's head. And it's weird because he is specifically trying to take all blame for it. He's saying, no, I'm making the sentence and I'm swinging the sword. This is all on me. But at the same time, it's not all on him because it's still the fucking system. Like he's still required to do this injustice. And the killing of Garrett is a complete injustice. But like, Ned is forced to do this injustice because of the system. And Ned somehow tries to justify it all by being like, well, I swing the sword and I do the sentence, but he doesn't really do that. I'm not sure why George has this little bit, because it's complicated, because a lot of people do look at that scene and be like, yes, Ned is so honorable because he's swinging the sword and he's doing the killing, but it's kind of meaningless. But I don't know, maybe he's making that statement that like Ned's honor is just something that he's manufacturing. But there's a lot of statements, it's just something to think about when you reread and you think about these scenes, about what is collective, when collective blame is dispersed, when the system does it and no one's to blame, how easy stuff passes, how we send people off to war, but that's the system, and there's no specific person to blame because everybody's stabbing Caesar, so no one's killing Caesar. Anyway, things to think about. Let's see where is this finally the long-awaited pasta stream? I don't know, man. I don't have any pasta around me today. I'm sorry. It's my wife made a chicken yassa this evening. It's pretty nice. Um, it's a Senegalese dish. It's quite delicious, quite delicious. Um, and it's already. Wait, Carmine, you had a video taken down? I don't know what that's about. Um, Preston, when Stannis saves the Night's Watch, the Kingsmen chant Stannis, Stannis, Stannis. I'm trying to remember. This is what Wisdom is talking about is I've been I was recently um like going over the prologue, and it's something I have on my Patreon right now, and in that scene, um the Waymar Royce yells when he does his last lunge at the other, he yells for Robert, and it's such a funny thing because like nobody after that does yell like for their king, like they don't go for Joffrey, for Rob. It's really weird that Waymar has this like um, uh, devotion to his king, um, and so I was kind of saying that it's kind of a dropped plot because or trying to kind of something that's phased out the loyalty people have for kings, um, and so Wisdom is bringing up that no, at the wall though, people do yell Stannis during that attack. Let me get the exact quote, um, which is fair enough. It's not for Stannis, but it's Stannis, Stannis. So it's a fair point. It's a fair point. It's more or less the same thing. Though I do think of like, yeah, the name they cried was Stannis, Stannis, Stannis. That's all true. A fair point. Though also we think of like Stannis's men as being like religious zealots and stuff like that. So, um, plus Stannis is there, you know, so you kind of feel like it's a little different when he's leading the battle to yell Stannis, Stannis versus like Waymar Royce is thousands of miles away from Robert. He's a man of the Vale. Like, why is this random dude being like on his last thing that he yells before he dies for Roberts? Like no one does that. But it's a fair point, Wisdom. Like that people do yell Stannis. Though Stannis is leading that battle, and they're probably religious zealots, and it's a little different, but I get it. It's similar. It's not the yelling your king's name is not completely abandoned. Um, the let's see. Um, let's see here. What's next? Best intro to my live stream. The way you say Gaius sounds like or bigger her girl saying guys. Gaius. Guy do some people say Gaius or Guy? I think I just say Gaius that way because the first Gaius I probably ever ran across before reading Roman history was probably Gaius Baltar from Battlestar Galactica, the original, and I think I maybe picked up Gaius from there, but I don't know. The Cassius sounds like Craster. Yeah, maybe. The yeah, and I don't know why George also just kind of throws in like references to stuff. So it's um, like, is there anything beyond just it being creepy? You know, like what, bringing in Frey pies. Is he making a statement about Titus Andronicus, which is a play about revenge? I mean, it is, but how deep is he really going into it? Um, so for the Republic, Preston, you ever smoke weed? Yeah, of course. So what, what, of course. Um, I have some funny, it's actually one time I was living in China and um, oh man, one time we were living in China and we were drinking at this bar. It was a foreigner bar for the most part. And we're all smoking hash and drinking in this bar. And we're sitting around and just talking to some random dudes. And then at the end of the evening, they all get up and put on their like PLO jackets, and we're like, oh crap! Like we didn't realize we were like smoking with PLO people, and then government police or whatever. We're like fuck, and then they left. And they were buying drinks all night, and they left. And then the bartender like runs out, and he's like, "Oh, they didn't pay." And it's like, yeah, I think they didn't feel like they needed to, but it was surprising. Um, let's see here. Always coming up with fresh takes on these books. It's not too hard. What's funny is that you know, George does think about stuff, and he does think about like literature and history and stuff like that. And some of the stuff is pretty obvious. Like Frey Pies is obviously Titus Andronicus, but I've actually never heard anyone talk about how it's Titus Andronicus. Like it's very clearly, obviously Titus Andronicus, or the fact that like everybody's stabbing John at the end, like that's obviously Julius Caesar, like overwhelmingly so, or the kids at the end, the little birds at the end. But no one ever talks about it. No one ever talks about like the thing beyond that. But it's there, you know, George is a big bookworm, so he thinks about all these times. Yeah, medieval times lords were constantly rebelling and trying to amass power, taking an opportunity from a weak ruler. Whereas in Westeros, they are strangely loyal to the king, liege lord, especially in the north. Yeah, I feel that at least in the first book, they're more loyal to the king, and then as time goes on, the George kind of breaks from that, and everybody's just kind of scheming opportunists after that. Um, which I mean, maybe he's going to reverse it when like the Targaryens arrive and everyone's like, "I was a secret Targ supporter the whole time." I don't, whatever they need. It's funny because I think about this a lot when people talk about like the Grand Northern Conspiracy, which is perhaps my all time least favorite theory, because it just goes so far. But like the fact that like all of these people would suddenly be like, "This person's my king. I'm ready to fight for them," and you're like, well, how does that? What's really your benefit? What's really your benefit out of it? Because that's what people are really calculating, right? Um, by the end of the story, would we actually be told things like the wall is a giant powered refrigerator, um, or that the long night was a nuclear winter, or just hinted? Yeah, George would only hint at this kind of stuff. He would never come out and say any of it. Um, for example, you can take a story of his like in the House of the Worm. So in the House of the Worm is this story where you know the Jamie character, his name's Annalyn, goes on this long existential adventure deep into the earth, discovers all sorts of secrets about his world and stuff like that related to the Golden Theta. Now, if you read other Thousand Worlds stuff, you know what the Golden Theta is. But if you just read In the House of the Worm, it's not nowhere, told. Like it's still a story where you can kind of figure stuff out. But the Golden Theta, like, specifically is talking, oh, these are the ecological engineering core. Like, this is kind of the past of the story. Or, if you read something like Windhaven, there's nothing specifically that says that, oh, they're flying around on like solar sails of like a previous society's like interstellar spacecraft. But it's hinted at, and you can kind of just like figure it out. Like, oh yeah, that's probably the case. But George would never like straight up tell any of these sorts of things. He's everything's going to be. He likes the mysteries. He likes leaving the mysteries there. Even when you take something like Fever Dream and the vampires that exist in it, and there's different theories on who they are and how long they exist, but it's never just like told outright. Or their ability to like convert people to vampires, which is clearly not a thing in the story, but it's never boldly just said. It's just you just kind of figured out that like, no, they can't actually like change people into vampires. Like it's kind of a funny thing. But yeah, or the end of Armageddon Rag, where you're just left going, what the fuck happened? Like George he does not answer things. So like, yeah, if the wall were a giant powered refrigerator, or the Long Night was a nuclear winter, you just find hints of it here and there. It would never be told. I mean, we're never told that Aaron's doing mouth to mouth resuscitation on the beach. We likely never will. It's just, once one person points it out, all the fans are like, oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that's fine. But there's no Statue of Liberty in the sand. Yeah, I hate the Grand Northern Conspiracy because somehow it always ends up as John Wank and not anything interesting. That is the kind of funny thing, and it's just not. I mean, it gets back to my whole thing about how so many people are just still searching and waiting for the sequel to the Storm of Swords, and because that's how other stories end. Like it seems like the first time I read it, I was like, huh, that's interesting. That totally makes sense. But then you kind of read it a little more, and you're like, no, that doesn't make sense at all. Like John does seem like the main character, right? Like the first time you read the story, you're like, John does seem like the main character, and everybody wants to talk about John, and you're most interested in getting back to the John story. So you feel like John's the main character, so everything should relate to John and John somehow saving the world. And so anything that plays into that like somehow seems correct because so many movies are set up that way, and so many stories are set up that way. The Jesus Neo Harry Potter character. So was John hatched from a dragon egg? Did Lyanna give birth to an egg? George is bonkers. I don't think anything like that. I mean, the most bonkers thing I can think of at the Tower of Joy is that something that kind of makes sense is that Rhaegar had eggs there, and that he was looking for some sort of hatching, and that there perhaps was wildfire, or some of the, like, if you think that Rhaegar is obsessed with prophecy, and then you look at what every other Targaryen did with regards to their obsession. Okay, so we have egg. He had eggs, and there was a big fire. That Aryan Brightflame drinking wildfire. You kind of piece together like what people, how did Daenerys do it? Well, she had a pyre with fire, right? And then you kind of say, okay, then we have these like scenes like the burning of the Tower of the Hand with Cersei with the wildfire. And like why is there this seemingly irrelevant scene about burning a tower in the story? And you kind of put these things together and you're like, well, burning things, like if he's talking about bringing back dragons because they were all obsessed with bringing back dragons, and it seems to involve fire and it seems to involve eggs, like doesn't it seem like there might be fire and eggs at the Tower of Joy, that kind of thing. That would all make sense, even though it's not based on very much except what other Targaryens have done, not necessarily what Rhaegar has done. Um, so, but like, would John himself be like hatched from a dragon egg? Well, I mean, we don't have any evidence of humans coming from eggs. If any, Chris, it's hard. He's just trying to get dragons out of eggs. That would be something though. Like they're trying to hatch dragon eggs, and then all of a sudden there's a human baby. That'd be weird. That'd be weird. I mean, George is bonkers, but he's bonkers in a way that most of the time like makes sense in a sci-fi way. Like, it'll be fucked up and weird, but it'll make sense. Like when I always bring up night flyers, but you're like, okay, well, if human beings had telekinesis and human beings were just, could be reduced to ones and zeros, you could upload a human mind to a machine, and then the machine would have telekinesis. And you're like, that's bonkers because we don't think about computers having telekinesis, but the logic kind of follows, right? Like sci-fi has telekinetic human beings, and sci-fi has people uploading their brains to computers. Put those two together, you got telepathic computers. I mean, it makes sense. It's fucking weird, So that's how kind of I think how George operates. There's always a weird, fucked up logic to what he's doing most of the time. I mean, I think there's a few examples like the skin trade or in the Lost Lands where there's not much logic to it, but like nearly all of his stories are very logical. How certain is Missandei that Dany is still alive? Did she ever? I mean, I know this is a question about like both the fanfic and like the actual story, but I'm trying to think. Hmm. Let's see here. I would say that so Barristan calls her forlorn once, but that forlorn could mean a lot of different things. Like forlorn usually means like lonely and abandoned and things like that. Um, which versus like being, I mean, or it can also mean sad, but like, is she sad because Daenerys is dead, or is she sad because she feels like Daenerys abandoned her? Which, when you think of the word forlorn, I guess you think more abandoned. So you would think that like you can't be upset that someone abandoned you if they're dead. It wasn't really their fault. So I think Missandei does think that Dany is alive, but that she's been abandoned, or at least that's just according to how Barristan views her. Which Barristan, which isn't saying much. I mean, Barristan's an idiot, so who knows? But but she does say, let's see here. She also thinks that, oh no, she's reporting on the Yunkish. The Yunkish think Dany might return. Um, and then she says, let's see, in the Queensguard chapter, Barristan heard it's no simple thing to slay a dragon in the sky. In Westeros, many tried down Aegon and his sisters. None succeeded. Missandei nodded. It's hard to tell if she was reassured. Do you think they will find her, sir? The grasslands are so vast, and dragons leave no tracks across the sky. So, I guess I'd say that Missandei does seem to believe that Dany is alive. She's just not certain if she's going to be found or if she's going to come back. And that's her worry, is that she's been abandoned, not that Dany is actually dead. Which is, interesting. I mean, all the slaves kind of like feel abandoned. I always think about like Resnak Mo Resnak and how, he's upset that Dany might jump in her ships and leave. That because that they don't really want her to leave. They want her to be the mother to take care of them. So I think it might be something like that. But I think Missandei, yeah, is certain that Dany is alive. It thinks that Dany is probably alive, but I think she's unsure if Dany's going to return. Wasn't there a theory that the others knew Jon would be heading to the Watch and mistook Waymar for him? Wouldn't that make sacrifice more sense? Um, I don't know why the others would think that, especially at that moment in time. I mean, keep in mind that like the the prologue of a Game of Thrones happens, um it's got to happen at least a month or two before Brand 1. In fact, I think some people put it like even before that, but I'm just basing it on like how long would it take for Garrett to get from off. I think they said they've been riding for 9 days or something, so you'd have to be like 9 days like north of the wall past Craster's Keep, because we know they stopped at Craster's Keep, and then he would have to get to the wall. I don't know, I guess, yeah, I guess they can you take the, we never know if Garrett is on a horse or not. I understand that in the show, Will, when he shows up, is not on a horse, but Garrett might have been on a horse. He had a horse. He had to get away from the others somehow. So could he take and then how did Garrett get to the other side of the wall? We don't know. Maybe the Black Gate. He's been in the Watch for 40 years. He might know everything. So he goes through the Black Gate. He's on a horse. That's going to take 3 weeks to get to Winterfell or get caught or whatever. But it's months. I just don't know why they would think that Jon was joining the Night's Watch. Like, Jon doesn't decide to join the Night's Watch until Benjen comes and the king arrives and things like that. So I mean, I don't know why. Yeah, I can't think of any reason why the others would be thinking that it was Jon and that they'd be fighting Jon. Um, does the Song of Ice and Fire have an equivalent in India? I don't know. Um, I mean, I'm sure there's like epics and stuff, but I'm trying to see if, was it translated into Hindi or anything like that? I've never heard of any. I mean, I'm sure India has like all sorts of. Oh, India is like chock filled with like entertainment um and stories. I'm sure there's a million things that they love. But I'm trying to think of what's the most popular book series in India. Um, huh. Um, The God of Small Things. These are like modern classic. Fasting, Feasting by Shadow Lines. I imagine, I guess they'd probably publish in English anyway. Um, Think about India as even though that Hindi is this like supposedly the communication language, people just use English because they're like, well, Um, oh my. And Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children is actually really popular there. The Namesake, huh? Um, Life of Pi. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I don't really know very much about Indian culture, honestly. I mean, I've been to India, but it's not it's not an area of the world I have much expertise in. Like having lived in East Asia and the Middle East, um, and then being a Westerner, you learn stuff about Europe and America, but I would say it's a big vacant hole in my knowledge about South Asia in general. You know, um, since sacrifice is a reoccurring theme, could the Red Wedding be an incidental sacrifice to Jamie, half a corpse, half a god? Mostly kidding. The weird thing about the weirdest thing about the Red Wedding to me is Roose Bolton's like um, part that this guy like shoot like is at Harrenhal and then he's like need to attend this wedding and heads all the way up there just so that he can stab Robb Stark. Um, after like reading some mysterious book and putting it into a fire. No idea why that dude did that or why the dude would feel the need to do that and why the dude would feel the need to say like Jamie Lannister sends his regards. Like there's just no, I mean, yes, it's he needs to do it to fulfill the plot of having Lady Stoneheart go nuts and remember Jamie Lannister sends his regards and think that Jamie Lannister is involved in everything. So yes, like as a destiny plot point, like Roose Bolton needs to do this. But I have no idea why Roose Bolton would feel the need to do this. like it's so freaking odd, right? It's so freaking odd. Um he like why would anyone like in such a dangerous environment too? Like why would you attend some wedding? I mean, maybe it was just to like gain the loyalty of the Freys because he needed that Frey army. And the best way to get that Frey army is to be like, I am straight up pro Frey. I'm going to come to your red wedding. And you know what? I'm going to kill Robb Stark. And then I'm fully on board with you guys. Like that's the best I can do. You know, like, oh, and that Hosteen Frey and Aenys Frey are like, whoa, that guy's awesome. I'm going to totally follow this guy north and do whatever I can for him. But it's kind of unnecessary because he's already getting married to Fat Walda and Hosteen is her uncle. Yeah. So like it's I don't know. So and again, just because I think that like there's a parallel to a sacrifice doesn't mean I think there's actually something supernatural going on, despite the red wedding appearing in every freaking vision before that. But you know, it's such an odd thing. Now, if it's time traveling Bran, it's a sacrifice in the sense that he's causing all of this, so he's sacrificing his own brother. But that's kind of for his big time travel shenanigans. We could say that the red wedding was really caused by Bran. You know, going beyond like what we're talking about with the sacrifice, it's amazing how many deaths that happen in the story you can't really attribute to a single person. Because like take the red wedding, like yeah, yes, Roose Bolton is the one that killed Robb, but he'd already been shot by like 3 people. Plus, the red wedding was planned by Walder and his crew, and it was planned by Tywin, and maybe time traveling Bran was like forcing all of the pieces into place. So like, who really caused the red wedding? Like, who really killed Robb? You know, a lot of people killed Robb. The whole system killed Robb, you know? Or if you say like Joffrey's like death, like, okay, who really poisoned him? You know, like, you know, was it the Tyrells? Was it Littlefinger? Or you could say, you know, Bran's dagger, like who really like stabbed Bran? Like there's always this weird ambiguity and unsureness of like who the actual killer is in all of these situations. Who really killed Ned? Like, yes, Ilyn Payne killed Ned, but it wasn't really Ilyn Payne. Was it Janos Slynt? Well, it wasn't really Janos Slynt. Was it Joffrey? Well, it wasn't really Joffrey. Was it Littlefinger? You know, like there's always this other layer of like more people and more implication where you can't even like pin anything down. And so in the end, like the system kills all of these people. If Ygritte embodies the old ways, even looks like a werewood, and Jon's attraction to her shows us his affinity to those ways, what the hell do we make of her death? No Night's Queen now that she's burned. You know, again, it's like sometimes George just like makes parallels for no reason. Like there's a scene where I bring this up a lot, where Penny in A Dance with Dragons like is crying and she's got a pale face and she looks up and she's got red eyes, and it's, you know, it's like clearly that's a werewood reference. But why the fuck are we like comparing Penny to a werewood? Like, what does that fucking mean? And you could like think about it all day and be like, Penny werewood. Penny werewood. It means fucking nothing. Like George was just making a fucking like parallel for no goddamn reason. Just because. You know, or like you know, when Moore's Umber, you know, head is cut off and put on a werewood pike and brought into battle, like clearly he's supposed to resemble Bloodraven. But what does that mean? Like, yeah, it's a parallel, but what does that mean? Like, why Moore's Umber is getting brought into battle in the same way that like Bittersteel's skull is getting brought into battle on a different front? Yes, I get it. It's paralleled. But what does that mean? Like, what? It means nothing. It's just paralleled. Like, Star Wars does this a lot, right? Where they just like, they have events that happen and they happen to another character the same way. And it rhymes like poetry. But what does it mean beyond that? Well, no, it doesn't mean anything. It's just things happen again. Okay. You know, like sometimes it works, right? Like Luke getting his hand, like cutting off his dad's hand and then looking at his own hand and realizing that, oh my God, like my hand is becoming Darth Vader's hand. Like I'm becoming him. Like, that makes sense. That's the parallel. Like, oh, he's realizing like what's going on with his own character. But then there's just these moments where, you know, like Count Dooku getting his hands cut off. What does that mean? I don't know. Anakin getting his hands cut off by Count Dooku. What does that mean? Like that Anakin didn't stop himself, that like Luke did, or you can try to come up with something, but it's just people getting hands cut off. So it's like it's paralleling for the sake of paralleling. Vampires versus werewolves. Who do you like more? Of course, George R. Martin thinks they're the same thing. I think I'm more intrigued by werewolves. I think that, and maybe it's just because I think that werewolf movies have done a better job in delving into like the human condition and trying to control oneself and things like that. I think I really like the movie American Werewolf in London. I think it's really good. American Werewolf in Paris is an abomination, but nonetheless, like I think it's a more interesting tale and tells us more about the human condition than vampires. Like there's nothing really to relate about vampires. Like vampires live forever and are super cool and drink blood. And human beings don't live forever and are not super cool and don't drink blood. And vampires can only go out at night, and humans, they go out during the day, like, so vampires don't tell us really anything about people. Well, like werewolves are about keeping back like emotions and animal nature that we want to control. And they're parts of us that we just, they're parts of all of us that we want to control that we can't. And that's just, I guess werewolves are much more human than to me, and more an interesting tale to me because it represents something about us. It's like Jekyll and Hyde, right? Like there's something there. But yeah, vampires, it's just creating something that is so foreign, that doesn't really speak to me. I don't know. Hi, please consider watching Bookborn, a YouTuber. When, if you have the time, she reads A Song of Ice and Fire for the first time. So fun to hear her reviews. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with Bookborn. I was thinking about reaching out to her when she finishes Dance. I don't want to talk to her right now because I don't want to spoil anything for her. But yeah, no, I watched a little bit of her Feast video. And I like her analysis, and when she finishes Dance, I'll try to chat with her, because I think it's a fascinating thing to have this like moment in time for somebody to have just finished the series and then talk to somebody about it, because we've all been over this kind of stuff a million times. And I always do love when sometimes when I meet people in real life, people are like, oh, you have a YouTube channel, I'm like, yeah. And they're like, what do you talk about? Oh, I talk about A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones and stuff. And they're like, oh, is there very much to talk about with that? And I was like, there's surprisingly a lot, And then I try to explain like, oh, have you read the books, and okay, yeah. And then I bring up, I was like, okay, so you remember with Theon in A Clash of Kings, when he kills those Miller's boys. Sometimes they remember. Sometimes they just go with it. And I'm like, well, it turns out that Theon was banging their mom, which means, and then, you kind of get the reaction, So I'd love to do that with her. When the time comes, when she finishes Dance. But yeah, anyway. Oh, this is a horrible, brutal one. This is horrible, man. This is horrible. Arel's eagle self-immolated in protest. Oh, it's so sad. So sad. Um, yeah. So there was a guy who, if you haven't been reading the news, there's a guy who um, in the Air Force who set himself on fire, killed himself um, in protest over U.S. Israel Gaza policy, and it's it's like I obviously, like, what's probably really happening is the guy had some mental health issues, but, like, it's also very sad because it's like, obviously, I agree with him. I sympathize with the Palestinian position quite a bit, and he felt very strongly, and he wanted to make a difference, and he wanted to help, and he felt that that setting himself on fire would achieve results. And no, that kind of protest never works. So it's just it was misguided that he threw away his life um, like that. And it's just another sad thing. But ugh, poor Orel's poor dude. But yeah, Orel's eagle, the big mystery. My big theory is that the eagle crossed a plane of the wall, and something happened to cause the telepathy to, you know Varamir Sixskins was controlling him, and that there was some sort of telepathic, like, um, rip that caused him to start on fire. Um, because why would Melisandre have, like, be able to cause eagles to combust? It's just such a ridiculous, like, thing. We're in Melisandre's head, and she seems like a charlatan. And if she had the ability to make something combust from you know from 500 feet up in the air, you'd think she'd be able to do some crazy magic. But um, um, thoughts on the end game for Euron in the fanfic? Well, I mean, I think that Euron is going to be a very interesting character to have around for a long time. I think he does have a future with teaming up with the Westermen. Um, I think it'll be interesting to see the character through other people's eyes other than Aaron. I think that, like, I mean, though Euron has tortured Aaron quite a bit. I think it'll be interesting to see Euron through another perspective, because when we see him through Asha's or Victarion's eyes, he's a little different, and I love that aspect of the story. How different Stannis is when we see him through Davos, from Catelyn's perspective, from Davos's perspective, from Jon's perspective, from Asha's perspective, from Theon's perspective. I love the fact that it's like a different character each time based on their perception. And I think Euron is going to be just as fascinating from different perspectives. So the plan is generally to rip Aaron from the Euron story, and then have another character observing him. Which there's only two other characters in that neighborhood, so it's going, for a while it's going to be either Sam or Hota. So we're gonna, so that'll be very, very interesting. Sam Tarly, um, near Euron, and how he would handle that. Um, I just think that's, yeah. So Um, Stark honor is really about hogging all the godly proceeds of human sacrifice for yourself. Ned reaching new levels of, of wasp for the Preston Jacobs audience. Maybe he's just like he does not want to share in the sacrifice. It's one sacrifice for him, and he tells his sons like, you better watch me sacrifice. I don't want anyone missing out on me doing all of the sacrifice by myself. Um, that thoughts on Mitch McConnell retiring. Mitch McConnell is a real piece of shit that really ruined America. Like he really ruined America. Obviously, like stealing the Supreme Court justice from like Slot drastically changed everything. And he also, that was just one thing he did. The other big thing he did was the Republican Party had the opportunity when during Trump's coup. Afterwards, they could have impeached Trump and been done with him. But in private meetings, Mitch McConnell said, Trump's a fading star, but he didn't want to anger the Trump base. So he purposely delayed the Senate removal hearing until after the election. Until after Joe Biden took control on January 20th. And then they all used the excuse, well, Trump isn't president anymore, so how can we impeach somebody that's not president? And that was their whole argument at the time. So completely passing the buck because they were scared of the Trump base. And keep in mind, Mitch McConnell hates Trump. And so doing so, he had the opportunity to end Trump's political career right then and there, and like start the Republican Party anew. And they were so craven that they didn't do it. They're like, no, we don't want to piss off the base. We don't want to piss off the base. And so thus Trump lingers. And now like the old guard, like everybody that he was, that old Republican way is now getting kicked out. And it's all becoming, the MAGAs. It's all the MAGAs. MAGAs are taking over. And, the never Trumpers, like, they're either exiting politics or becoming Democrats. So it's, it's we're at a point where it's either the end of the Republican Party or it's the end of America. So it's this is the path. This is the path, and we'll see what this election is. We'll see how 2024 works out. But he really destroyed like the middle ground for Republicans. He really made people make a choice, and they made the choice. They made the choice for MAGA. So he's really just, man, with the Supreme Court, with the Supreme Court issue, and him not like removing Trump after the coup as a strategy to scoop up Republican votes that failed. Like, what just a horrible human being. So good riddance to the dude. He'll be replaced by somebody more extreme, even though he's pretty damn extreme. But that's where we are in America. So I don't know. Some people are like, oh, you're going to miss Mitch McConnell. Well, I don't know. Soon the Senate will be as broken as the House. Like, prologue of Game of Thrones had resurrection. What if Dany died in the epilogue and had been resurrected this whole time? What would George R. R. Martin's goal be in that? This idea that somehow like Dany's dead and she's a Firewhite, Like what, or that Danny died in the original, in the Game of Thrones epilogue. Sorry, for a minute there, I was imagining zombie Danny around the in the Dothraki Sea. Um, I mean, I guess she's in the Dothraki Sea in both. So, but huh? Like, what if she died, and that she is a Firewhite, um, in the same sense of like John coming back, or Beric Dondarrion coming back, or Lady Stoneheart coming back. Like Danny has been brought back. Huh? I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously, in a sort of metaphorical sense, there's rebirth, right? Everybody's getting reborn, so it's, in a sense, that is what's happening, you know. But that she's resurrected, at least metaphorically, right? You know, you're bringing back Jesus, right? It's a fucking Jesus moment, and there's all these zealots that are ready to follow these people in the story, because zealots seem to like people coming back from the dead. That seems to be the way to get followers. Just come back from the dead. You'll get followers. Or so I mean, obviously it's there, but I don't know if she's actually, she actually like a zombie. I guess not. I'm trying to think of like all the moments, because she still gets burned, she still gets injured and heals, she still has her hair grow, stuff like that. So, um, I mean, I definitely think there's like a rebirth kind of thing, but it's not. We don't think of Jesus coming back as and him being a zombie, right? Like, people make jokes about zombie Jesus, but like Jesus isn't a zombie. He's not dead. He's living again, right? So Danny resurrected but living. I mean, the goal, I think the goal is just, yes, to have a rebirth, to have the Messiah parallel, to have a reason for people to follow the person, that kind of idea. I think it's just as simple as that. I don't know if there's anything beyond, like, if there'd be anything good about or useful to her being a zombie, but clearly the rebirth Jesus thing is there. But damn. Oh. Why do you think characters went from chanting King's Lord's names to a place? Tommen called Casterly Rock at Joff's tourney. Computer telekinesis is Wi-Fi. That's true. I mean, it's funny going through, like, and I'm going to discover a lot of these things going through a Game of Thrones, and you just kind of sense that George had a plan in the beginning, and it's, some of the stuff comes back and some of the stuff doesn't. Some of the stuff he tries to bring back, like throwing in Waymar's sword, for example, in A Dance with Dragons. There was no reason to bring back Waymar's sword. No one was sitting there going, "Where the fuck's Waymar's sword?" Like, no one's doing it. This isn't Ned's Bones. Had Waymar's sword been lost under the snow forever, no one would have cared. And then George just was like, "I'm going to bring back Waymar's sword." That's a season 1 reference. But like, it's very clear that like the story he had in his head when he wrote the prologue and when he wrote A Game of Thrones is not what the story is now, and he quite clearly is establishing the setting of the story as a story about the dead, about the others, which it is escaped from. That is, the plot is now, the others are like this tiny little thing. Well, so much more has grown like around it. So there's that aspect that he's and then there's that prologue is so much about the class warfare, Highborn versus small folk. And that's been largely also just ignored. There's just so little about highborn small folk, um, uh, that when I think about, like, in general Game of Thrones, I mean, Tyrion's story with Tysha, which is from a Game of Thrones, is a highborn small folk kind of thing. Um, Tyrion runs into the hill tribes, and the watch, and the dynamic between the powers on the watch, and Jon's reason for join the Night's Watch, and the turmoil of bastards and all of this, like, and that's all. But you establish the setting of Garrett versus Waymar as being such a huge thing, like lowborn versus highborn, and that's just, George moved on from that. And so there's just I think in general, just George evolves. It's 20 years between he starts a Game of Thrones in 1991, he finishes A Dance with Dragons in 2011. It's just that George kind of evolves and changes, and but yeah, is there a logical reason why they switched from kings to places? No, I don't think so. I think as time went on, he just decided that as the characters moved away from liking kings and being more about their local area, it made more sense for them to yell out their home turf versus their king, who's a very far away person. My theory is Stannis is Saul, blessed by R'hllor until he makes a bad sacrifice or thereof. Jon is David, the chosen new leader after Stannis fails. George biblical retelling. I'm trying to think though. They trying to think where Solomon fits into that. Right, because do we get a Solomon after David? Because is Jon gonna have is Solomon the Bran? Is that the idea? We've got a Stannis is Saul, Jon is David, and and Bran would be wise Solomon. You'd have that. I think though, I mean, besides there just being an order like that, well, let me think. Like, I mean, the thing about David, David is kind of known as this like wicked dude who did a lot of wicked things, and then and then was reformed and became like a good leader, right? Um, I don't know if we can really like describe Jon like that. Yeah, he slept with Ygritte, but was that really wickedness? I don't think the audience nor George R. R. Martin thinks that Jon fucking Ygritte was wicked. Um, you know, so I think that it's hard to make a David Jon connection like that when just the basis of like what I think of David and all of like the horrible things that David did, and then and then evolving to becoming a good leader. It'd be closer to find like a Jamie David parallel, right? Because there's like the whole thing is there's a redemption story with David. John's just good from the beginning. Like John's a good person who becomes a better person. That's like the story of Jon. He's a guy we really like, and then he becomes even better because he accepts the wildlings and things like that. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see, we'll see. But maybe work on the Saul David Solomon thing. Hey Preston, what's your least favorite thing in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe? I can't stand the voice of Roy Dotrice first uses for Missandei. Oh, Roy Dotrice has some funny voices here and there. I'm not sure if I like his switch to his new Danny in A Dance with Dragons. Um, the I'm trying to think of like what my least favorite thing. There's definitely some things that wasn't I ranting just a few weeks ago about something ridiculous? Trying to think of what exactly it was. Um, hmm. But it's funny, Roy Dotrice, in general, Roy Dotrice, what a what a what a treasure he was. Um, I think I go through different waves. I think I don't know. I think I think recently I've been really annoyed at and this isn't something I hate, but recently I've been annoyed at like the the Robert Baratheon stereotype character that just keeps appearing, or the tough Northerner like guy that we're all supposed to love, and I don't mean Robert Baratheon in actuality, because Robert Baratheon is actually a very very nuanced character, but I'm talking like the more stereotype version of the Robert Baratheon, like the one you find in the Duncan Egg stories, the Baratheon in that. You've got this like big guy with a big beard who likes to drink, and like he's a shoulder puncher and is like, da 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 da. Like I'm, a Tormund Giantsbane kind of character, or at least the what Tormund puts forward. I think Tormund might actually be more nuanced after all. But like George uses that kind of character all over the place, like this big jolly like um the great John Umber. Your meat is mighty tough. Like you're like, oh god, like look. I think recently I've been annoyed at that. Maybe it's because I spent far too much time like on that Stark dishonor video and reading Cregan, and you're just like, oh god, these fucking like big burly tough guys, like just give me a break, give me a break. But it's hardly a hate, it's just an annoyance, like, oh, you're gonna throw another one of those characters at me, another one, another big burly tough man who likes to drink and is ready to die, who's who's quick to anger but quick to forgive, like that one. But that's just recently I've just kind of annoyed at that. I don't know if there's anything what do I really can't stand. I don't know. I mean, the fact that there's no The Winds of Winter, maybe. I don't know. Oh, um, or I don't know. There's a lot of Fire and Blood that's been annoying me. A lot of Fire and Blood that's been annoying me, just because it's just it's so slapped together. But um, why does Resnack support Danny? I think Resnack like legitimately believes um that there is that like Hisdar, that there was that um Meereen was stagnant, and that you know uh, perhaps slavery was wrong, and that there really is like a way forward, for a new prosperous um, Meereen. I really do kind of think he thinks that. I mean, he's so pro Hisdar, so you just kind of think like he must have the same mindset and ideology of Hisdar. But also, like, even if we're gonna say that Resnak is nothing but a conniving dude, he's gone all in on Dany. And when Dany announces that she's gonna leave, he's like, "Oh crap, we're all gonna die." like what if you leave us? You know, what so he must have had some sort of belief. I'm trying to think, like, what was it? He was so upset when Dany wants to leave that you know you'd think if Dany left, like, oh, the Yunkish wise masters would just like reinstall the great masters in Meereen or something. But he's fully believes that he will die if Dany leaves. Um, at least for working. I mean, maybe just because he was working for her or whatever. But I do think that, and it's maybe based on very little because we don't actually get Resnak's like, you know, beliefs on this directly. But he's extremely pro Hisdar and seems to not want Dany to leave. So I think he must believe in a new Meereen. Um, you know, a more compromised Meereen, and he's no shave pate or anything, but I think he thinks, I think he's like a liberal. He's a liberal. Well, I don't know which question I've misread. It's probably one a while back, an hour ago. Getting through. Okay. Roose has bloodlust like Ramsay. He just wanted to do it. It's the I mean, it's maybe a joke, but like, there's something to that maybe, because it is the most reckless. Like, considering how calculating and conservative Roose Bolton is in every other thing he does. Besides, like, there's two reckless things that Roose Bolton does in his career. Everything else is very conservative. One, giving Ramsay any sort of power, and two, the red wedding thing. It's fucking crazy, right? Now, but yeah, he's so conservative, but with regards to his soldiers. But then I suppose he does like pull his. I don't know. I mean, the Brave Companions pulled that off for him, but pulling the Brave Companions over and sneaking into Harrenhal and doing all that, I guess. But everything is very like, you think about like who he chose to marry. Like, oh well, I'm going to choose the woman who's going to be the fattest because she's going to bring in the most gold in her with her dowry and stuff like that. Like, very logical kind of things. I'm going to put all of my soldiers the last in the front so that we'll see other people die, and then I'll figure out which side I want to be on. He's so conservative, and so calculating. And then he's just like, no, I'm gonna ride to the red wedding and then get in the middle of a fucking battle and be the person that kills Robb Stark. Bloodlust, sacrifice. Really, really wanted to impress them Freys. I don't know, but I think he already had him. But Joffrey actually choked, and Pycelle was lying. It wasn't just Pycelle though. I think Balabar also looks into it. What was the motherfucker's name? the Tyrell Maester. I've got to look this motherfucker up. Is it Balabar? Yeah, Balabar. I think I just spelled it wrong. Get Here we go. Maester Balabar and Maester Franken opened the second day of the trial. They had opened King Joffrey's noble corpse as well, they swore, and found no morsel of pigeon pie or any other food lodged in his royal throat. It was poison that killed him, my lords, said Balabar, and Franken nodded gravely. Now, Balabar is the Tyrell Maester. So one could perhaps... No, I'm sorry. Balabar is the red wine Maester. And so one could perhaps kind of say, well, you know, Lyanna Tyrell, like, she's a red wine. So she can just order her Maester to say that the dude had nothing in his throat. But but the problem is that he should be arguing the other way, right? Right? Like, don't they want it to look like choking? Shouldn't the red wines want it to look like choking so that Joffrey's out of the way and then, you know, Tommen will come in and there's no more conflict? Like, the Tyrells, the red wines and the Tyrells have no motivation to want conflict. So the fact that, like, Balabar is saying that it's poison is going against the motivations of his house. And then there's Maester Franken, who is from Stokeworth, and he has no dog in the fight. Like, he's just going to say what's honest. So I would say that Balabar and Franken are being absolutely correct. There's no reason to not trust these guys, especially Franken, who goes along with it. But Balabar, he's saying the exact opposite of what he should be saying. You know, if he was paid off to lie, he would be saying the reverse. Like, he would say, nope, there's food. Joffrey choked. Oh, okay. You know? So, Pycelle can lie all day, but it's, but Balabar and Franken, I mean, you know. Now, if you say, like, okay, maybe Pycelle, like, went in and, like, dislodged the food or something like that, you know, you'd have to get that, you know, and play, you know, that's a different argument. Pycelle went in and removed the food. But again, what is Pycelle? Why is Pycelle looking for conflict? That's never been Pycelle's motivation, especially if, you know, we see him in A Feast for Crows. He's like the smartest guy in the book. He's the smartest man in the book, man. He's Pycelle is Joe Biden in A Feast for Crows, man. He's old, but everything he does is correct. So Roose creates Lady Stoneheart. That's what he was reading about. Wants her to go after the Lannisters for reasons. So we don't know how Lady Stone Cat goes from getting her throat slit to being stripped naked and tossed in the river. And we don't know what happens in between that and that. So could, like, Roose Bolton cast some sort of strange spell or whatever on Catelyn? Maybe. We don't know. We don't know what happened to Catelyn's body between getting her throat slit and getting tossed in the river. Though I don't know if her body was ever alone. You know, it sounds like They just ripped her clothes off and brought her to the river and threw her in. The the problem with like the Roose did it is that she's floating in that river for a while, and then she gets pulled out by Nymeria, and then the Brotherhood Without Banners finds her, and she comes to life. And so one would think that whatever, based on just the timing, you've got Roose has got her body, then she's tossed in the river, and she's in that river for what, a couple days? I don't know. I don't know how long it takes for a body to flow down the river, but nonetheless, she's in the river for a couple days, and then she happens to wake up right then with Nymeria and the Brotherhood Without Banners. Like, you'd think that whatever happened, it was either Nymeria or the Brotherhood Without Banners. You'd think it wouldn't be Roose Bolton, who had the corpse like, well, whatever, 2 or 3 days earlier, and we're not sure if he even had them alone. But nonetheless, a fun theory that he was reading about the book. He was reading about it, figured out how to animate her, and then she came back. But the sailor's wife equals Taisha, Bara equals Lyanna, analogy with kids. We're talking about, these are people in Bravos at the happy port. So this is what we know about the sailor's wife. I've heard this one about the sailor's wife before. I haven't heard the Bara equals Lyanna kind of story. But so from what we hear, she says he's not a lord, a child's voice put in. He's in the Night's Watch, stupid, from Westeros. A girl edged into the light, pushing a barrel full of seaweed. A scruffy, skinny creature in big boots with ragged, unwashed hair. Obviously, this is Arya. There's another one down at the Happy Port singing songs to the sailor's wife. She informed the two bravos. To Sam, she said, if they ask who the most beautiful woman in the world, say the Nightingale, or else they challenge you. And then we next hear of the sailor's wife because Darian is wed to the sailor's wife, and Sam is like, wed? He can't wed. And then he says, in the Cat of the Canals, we find out about the sailor's wife again. We've got her girls were nice, blushing Bethany and the sailor's wife, one-eyed Ina, who could tell your fortune. And then Cat was thinking about the fat boy, remembering how she saved him from Taro and Orbello. When the sailor's wife appeared beside her, he sings a pretty song, she murmured softly, in the common tongue of Westeros. The gods must have loved him to give him such a voice and such a fair face as well. Yes, and then we find out the sailor's wife, she only beds people who marry her first. And then she insists that people buy oysters to stiffen their penises. So what we have here is, okay, Taisha is also Westerosi, sailor's wife, Westerosi, clearly. Taisha got married, and I'm trying to think, hold on a second. Here's the thing is, she only beds people that marry her. I'm trying to get this right here. Did Tyrion and her have sex first. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. So, like, I get it. I get the connection. We've got like, oh, a sex worker who insists on being married and is Westerosi. So we have these elements: sex worker, marriage, Westerosi. Tyrion is told that Tysha is a sex worker. He marries her. She's Westerosi. Like, I get it. But there's a few things that are off there. Okay, one, first and foremost, Tysha was not a sex worker. And so, is there any reason for her to become a sex worker? You know, um, she lost her maidenhead. I suppose one could be like, oh, she's damaged goods. She can only be a sex worker now. Eh, is it that hard? Is it that hard to be like to to lie? Or maybe she made so much money during her whole horrible altercation, she decides that's the way to go. Well, like, there's nothing really in the story that says like, okay, a girl is raped, she needs to become a sex worker after that. So Tyrion, so there's a missed connection in the sense that, like, Tysha is not really a sex worker. He's told that she's a sex worker. So, like, finding a sex worker later in the story and assuming it's Tysha, it's kind of a weird thing, The other thing is the sailor's wife insists on getting married first before she beds people. Tyrion had sex with Tysha, then they got married. Also, like, you just the psychology of it. Why would a woman, like, after her situation, like, choose to like relive that weird moment by having it part of her shtick? And then what does what does it have to do with sailors and stuff like that? So, I mean, it's interesting and all, but I don't really see enough of the connection, to assume that the sailor's wife is Tysha. It doesn't fit for me, like, the psychology of it, like why Tysha would do something like that. You'd think she'd just want to forget the whole thing. um um Now, meanwhile, also I wonder about, because how old's Tyrion? I'm trying to, because Tyrion in his late 20s. Yeah, Tyrion is 27 years old. Okay, and Darian is a boy, right? It's so, it's not that he can't go for a, let's say, assuming Tysha's, Tyrion's age, like, I guess, but it's just like, in the field of sex work, like, people age fast. I don't know if Darian would be interested in a 27-year-old. Maybe, I don't know, maybe. Now, Lyanna. Lyanna is another sex worker at the Happy Port. She is she's the daughter. She's she's the daughter of the sailor's wife, and so Bara, isn't Bara the yeah, isn't she the bastard daughter of Robert Baratheon? Um, that equaling Bara equals Lana analogy with the kids. See, some people have made the joke that, or made the weird idea that somehow Penny is Tyrion's daughter, and that he could end up having sex with his own daughter, which is a pretty screwed up one. Um, but like assuming Penny is like 15 or something, and there's 14, 14. Um, okay, so this is idea that like somehow you've got these kids around. Like, um, I'm not sure what about Lana's personality would make me think that she is Tyrion's. Um, she's just a pretty 14-year-old prostitute with the golden hair aspect. So, okay. She's golden hair, so the idea she gets the golden hair from a Lannister. Maybe, but I suppose they're Westermen, right? She was raped by a bunch of Westermen guards too. Could be any of them. Uh, uh, I don't know. I don't. I'm not super convinced. I mean, it's just seems like a weird thing for someone to do. Some weird thing for someone to do. Did you end your wedding vows with "I'm probably wrong about half of this"? No, no, no. I think I ended my wedding vows with the line, "I hope that with my dying breath I think of you and your dimple," something like that. My wife has one dimple, and so I think that's what I said. Um, I really don't buy that Craster's sons are transformed into the others. Do you think it's possible that the others use them as spies, and that some characters in the story could be agents of the others? I mean, that's a fascinating idea. That's a fascinating idea that they're never transformed, and that they're raised just to be agents that infiltrate um uh stuff down south. I mean, that's a really fun, I mean, I have to say that's a fun idea. um I don't think it's true, only because in the original story, like, George was going to call them Neverborns. And then, of course, like in the show, we see the transformation of the children into others and stuff like that. So just in that sense, it seems like in George's head, no, these Neverborns were like others getting transformed, like humans getting transformed. However, that's a really fun idea. That's I have to say, like, the idea that, like, actually they're getting raised, and they gain sympathy and allegiance to the others as like wards, and then they're sent off to do like strange bidding to like bring the downfall of like human society. um I mean, that's fun. But it might make a very good story. It'd be a very big surprise at the end. Like, what? You're all working for the others? Yeah. Where do you think Craster's sons go to? Now, the other thing is, um, if they were actually in the story, one would think we would have a whole bunch of characters that looked the same, that all looked like Craster's inbred sons, like floating around, right? Because all of like Gilly looks like all of her sisters, and um, so there should be like all of these like Gilly brothers, like, who look like Gilly, by the way, who are like all over in the story. Um, By the way, at some point when Sam sees another, he should look at the face and realize that it looks like Gilly. That's something that should come up later. That like, oh my gosh, the others look like Gilly. That's never discussed, right? That the others should look like Gilly? Man. With the Penny Werewood parallel, maybe it was supposed to hint that Penny is a watcher spy, how the Werewoods are watcher spies. That's a pretty good idea. I'll grant that, Christian. That that there's some sort of secret with Penny, and she and that she could be watching for some other powers and stuff like that. I could see that, and that there's some other, that somebody else is controlling her or something like that. That's a fun idea. I can go for that. Dragon Demands is here. I guess he's not watching Cold Lesbians tonight. For the past or maybe it's Cold Lesbians over. Did all the episodes of Cold Lesbians come out? That was the yeah, it's finished. It's finished. Okay. Um, I thought that by cutting two hands of Count Dooku instead of just one, that he was a lost was a signal that he was lost to the dark side. I'm sure there's something like that. Like if you're making the argument that okay, what's happening? What's happening?
Poor Jack Donnelly, brother. I thought your super chat was fucking hilarious, man. I thought it was. I'm probably wrong about half of it. I thought it was funny. Preston clearly didn't see the humor in that.
I know it was for funny, but that's
what's the name of the show? Cold Lesbians, Dragon Demands.
No, Cold Lesbians is True Detective season 4. That's what it is. Yeah.
Someone's been watching The Grifters. I like it.
No. What's funny is I had to get together and some old friends of mine showed up. It was a gay couple, and they're like, we gotta get home. We gotta finish watching Cold Lesbians. And I was like, Cold Lesbians. I was like that. Yeah. I was like, okay. That's where I got it from. But I was like, that is funny. It's kind of apt,
I want you in on the meme too with Dragon Demands, because every time I see any lesbians on Twitter, I thought you did it because you know about the meme. Like anytime I ever see like any lesbian action on Twitter from like either OnlyFans models or arts or artistic interpretations of characters, I always tag Dragon Demands. I'm like, hey, did you see this? Because he always does that to me. Like anytime there's Game of Thrones news, he'll tag me. Like, do you see this? Every time I see lesbians, I always
no. I was saying nothing more than just the fact that the leads are in a very cold place. That's it. Like it doesn't go anything beyond that. It's just a show about a couple lesbians in a very cold environment. That's it. That's all it is. There's nothing
to do a quick callback of the person who asked about India in Ice and Fire. Someone was trying to convince me years ago that Volantis is India, because I think, what did they say? I think he also had a Reddit post on it, that the word for elephant in Volantine is also the same word for elephant in Indian.
I mean, maybe he got that specific word. The thing is from my experience of reading George's stuff.
There's more. There's a lot more. I'll have to send it to you later, but there's a lot more. Yeah. So,
but from what I've read of George's stuff, he knows a lot about European history. And the minute George gets outside of America, he knows a lot about American history too. But the minute George gets outside of America and Europe, George's history plummets pretty quick. I've never seen him like I don't know, portray anything outside of out of Europe very accurately. Like he doesn't really know very much about, say, like the Middle East or Islam or Middle Eastern history or anything about. I've never seen anything about like China or Japan. Just thinking of like things I know about. But he knows a lot about. He knows a fuckload a lot about British history. I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, I
German
mean, yeah.
history. He knows a lot about that. So
By the way, are you going to include that in your fanfic? That eventually Sam will encounter the White Walkers again, and he'll look at their faces and see that they kind of resemble Gilly.
yeah, I mean, I guess it'll be a while off, but
Be a while. Well, what you call it? Left of You said something really cool. It's very Sand Kings ish to do that.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. The end of Sand Kings, yeah, they all had his face, yeah.
Mhm. I'm
Um,
gonna leave you soon because I have like I'm making some pot roast. But are you gonna watch Shogun? Are we doing anything on Shogun?
oh,
Shogun.
okay. You said it's on. It's
You know where it's at. You know where to get it.
right. No, we talked about this, but it's yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not on the majors, right? It's not on the major
No,
platform.
it's not on the fucking pluses or whatever the
It's on
fuck or maxes.
Stars. You said it was on Stars.
Stars. Stars, really? Is it on? No, it's on FX.
It's on FX. Even
Hmm.
worse.
No, show. Oh, hey, real quick. By the way, you might get an email of someone claiming that I'm a Nazi. That's it.
Mm,
No, don't listen to that guy. I'm not a Nazi. It's just I was singing "Springtime for Hitler" and someone heard it and recorded me, and they're like, "I'm going to send this to Preston." Like, fuck you, dude. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Trump supporter. It's not.
springtime for Hitler in
And
Germany.
Germany,
Yeah,
Deutschland is happy and gay. It's the greatest song ever. It's super catchy. It's just sorry to the
sure,
Germans, but it's just
sure.
amazing, you know.
I don't know how singing "Springtime for Hitler." It's. I mean, the point of the point of the movie and the point of what Mel Brooks was doing. Because first of all, Mel Brooks, if you've ever seen him in interviews where they actually bring up like the Holocaust, he gets very, very like serious and angry um, about it. Uh, and his idea with the producers and other things like Hitler on Ice and stuff like that you're going to see is that he felt that the best way to deal with Hitler was to just to mock him to and make his image a joke to sort of like destroy him that way in the afterlife by making him just the butt of every joke. And so that's kind of what like a little bit of the springtime for
Oh,
Hitler thing is.
it's the producers. It was like a Broadway
Yeah.
show play, but I love the movie with Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick. They're just fuck. It's so good when Hitler comes out. Heil myself, like it's just I flip out every time. It's so
Yeah.
fucking good.
I mean, keep in mind that like Mel Brooks fought in World War II.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like
no. Real, completely random. His son, I think Max Brooks. His son
hmm,
Max Brooks wrote possibly the best zombie book ever. If you guys are looking for like a legit cool zombie book, World War Z. Yes, they made a movie with Brad Pitt. I promise you, the book is much better. But you know what's even better than that? Possibly top three best audiobooks ever is the World War Z audiobook. They have like guest stars come in. Mark Hamill is in it, and it's so good. The audiobook is so good. Highly recommended to anybody that likes
yeah.
yeah.
It's so weird, right? That he I mean he became famous for yeah. I remember even before World War Z, my roommate had the zombie survival guide, which
Mm.
was kind of funny. Um yeah, but man, it's so
Wait, is
weird.
it called the Zombie Survival Guide? Max Brooks. Is it? Maybe I'm
No, no, no.
because
He
when I
wrote
got
the
the
zombie
audiobook.
survival guide and then World War Z.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's really good. It's like ironically Israel is the first country in that book that like realizes what's going on, so they build the wall. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. It's weird. Yeah, I don't know if they knew what to do with that when they made the movie of it, and stuff like that. So
Wait, Trey was tearing World War Z to pieces a while ago? Really? Where? Like, link it to me, my dude. Anyways, I'm going to I'll just mute myself. I'll come back later, maybe if you're. How long you plan on streaming?
Oh, another hour.
Hey, real quick,
Gotta get through a
um,
pile.
we'll get to your pile. You know what we should do? We should get like Trey and maybe someone else to that bullshit Feast for Crows quiz you gave me and Mira. For those of you who don't know, I had on we had on Miss Mira Reads, YouTuber Miss Mira Reads, and Preston gave us me and her the hardest, most ridiculous bullshit fucking quiz ever. Like you woke up and chose violence that day. I don't know why. What the fuck? But that was the most ridiculous book. I challenge. Don't give out the link yet. I challenge any asshole who thinks they know Ice and Fire to come fucking take this quiz. So I'm gonna try to. You want to get Trey on and like have him do it, then I'll intercut like me, Trey, and Mira like answering to see like you want to do that, something like that.
Sure. It's no, I mean it's ridiculous. Like obviously, had I taken that, I would have not gotten all of the questions.
Oh fuck you! You would have gotten it either. So just so the audience knows, after me and Mira are done, Preston goes over the quiz and he goes, "All right, so this question, yeah, I would have gotten this, and this well, I would have gotten that too, and this quiz, well, I would have gotten these as well. I mean, I would have gotten them all actually."
No. I was honest that there was definitely like 3 or 4 that I would have not gotten. Like and but you're always a little biased too, like choosing questions that of things you're interested in. I mean, the way I went through the quiz is I took Feast, and then I kind of went like, who are the characters from Feast? Oh, I need a question. I need a question from the Aerys Oakheart chapters. I need a question from the Arion chapters. I need a question from the Asha chapters. I need a question from the Aeron chapters. And I kind of like went by like that until I hit everybody. But it turns out people don't pay attention to the Soiled Knight.
Preston has a question where he goes, "Which character in this chapter is what is it? Not naked?
Yeah,
not naked." Honestly, that beats my Ice and Fire question, which is like, who had the best nude scene in Game of Thrones? The answer is everybody. Everybody had the best nude scene in Game of Thrones. That would be mine, but I can't pick multiple.
Nude scene. What was the best nude scene?
You really have to break it down. Who has the nicest ass, legs, thighs, titties? Like chin. Like you really have to break it down. It becomes a science. Which
isn't there that scene? There's that scene where Oberyn is inspecting like 4 in a row. That then you're getting pure numbers there.
Multiples, sure. Multiples, why not? Fuck it. Multiples. Yeah. Are we also?
This is a Star Wars question here for a second, okay? Because I was making the comment before that a lot of the prequels are just paralleled to stuff in Star Wars, and it doesn't necessarily mean stuff. It's just that stuff happens twice. But I perhaps didn't choose the best example because I choose the people getting their hands cut off. But he's saying I thought that by cutting 2 hands of Count Dooku instead of just one, that he was lost to the dark side for him. And I was kind of thinking like, okay, Anakin gets his hand. Does he get both his hands cut off in Attack of the Clones or just one? Karma.
One.
He
gets one, yeah.
And then for vengeance, he takes 2 of Dooku's. Is that the idea?
Yeah, he's disarming him, yeah.
But then he kills Dooku after that. So
with the Emperor like urging him to do so, yeah.
Right. So the idea is that you're somehow paralleled to Luke losing his hand, then taking Vader's hand, but then stopping himself.
Yep.
Anakin loses his hand, then takes Dooku's hand, and then doesn't stop himself to become Darth Vader. That's the implication in those scenes. Yeah. Yeah.
Real quick,
those parallels work better. I'm trying to think of, but there's all sorts of like random redos that that don't really mean much. Like I don't know, like a certain character saying I have a bad feeling about this each time. Like what does it matter? Like what does it matter that that keeps coming back? Or um, trying to think of some other like random things like that that are just like paralleled and brought back. There's a lot with like whatever circles and ships and whatever. I've seen like clips where they put all the movies together and how George has like filmed scenes side by side, and you're like, well, what's the point of that? Oh, um, like what's the point? I don't know of having the battle on Naboo being paralleled to Buster Keaton's like movie and stuff like that. It's just like, well, I don't know, there's just none.
You're talking about that guy's Star Wars videos, aren't you? That one guy you sent me,
Yeah,
the dude
yeah,
who
yeah. This stuff I don't remember, but anyway.
Chris Stuckman and Red Letter Media are wrong.
Yeah, no. But the thing is, like, I accept the premise that George Lucas did spend a lot of time thinking about the prequels, but spending a lot of time thinking about something doesn't necessarily mean it's good. So that's I think the difference. Like the video I sent you was like, yeah, George Lucas spent a lot of time thinking about stuff, and he parallels a bunch of things, and he thinks about every moment, because directors do that. But I don't necessarily think that just because you did that and you thought about stuff and you took a lot of care and time, that the product was necessarily good, because I don't think the prequels are good. But whatevs.
Are we covering Dune, by the way? Because someone mentioned Space Jews and Dune. No.
Well, the real Space Jews don't show up until book 6, so we're many movies away from that.
Well, are you gonna? Do you want to cover Dune Part 2?
Sure. I need to see it. I mean, so I guess I gotta go to the same location that you're talking about for Shogun and find myself Dune.
You want you shouldn't get the cam version. Get the actually go to the theaters and watch it if you can. It's an experience.
I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that shit.
If you want to watch in the cam version, that's fine. But I've seen the cam version. It's not that great.
No. I mean, you're right. That was the point. Yeah. No, I need to watch at least a good version of it.
When you watch it, we got to have a conversation about like the white savior trope, because Timothy Chalamet Bing Bong is not the white savior in Dune. He's just not. He's just not.
Well, here's the thing: is Frank Herbert wrote Dune, and then a lot of people left that book thinking that Paul was the hero. So he purposely was like, fuck, everyone has misinterpreted my work. So I am going to write Dune Messiah to really drive home what the story is. And Dune Messiah, like, is that. So like it's to say like, oh, like Paul Atreides is the white savior, it's missing the point. It's missing the point completely, because
they thought Paul was the hero. Those fools. It was really Liet Kynes the entire time, right?
But the idea is that like Paul is a pawn, and tries not to be a pawn. And so I don't know. So
that's in the movie. That's in the movie. They're like, I'm not the Messiah. He's the Messiah. That's something the Messiah would say. He's the Messiah.
Yeah.
All right. I need to BRB. So give me a few. I'll be back later.
Okay. Who has the more biased trail, Jon and Tyrion before the Great Council, or Trump before the Supreme Court? I mean, I guess Trump at the Supreme Court. I mean, he got to hand select 3 people, and then has like 2 more that were selected by people of his party. Like even Jon and Tyrion, like we've got a bunch of people on there that might not like be so associated. You at least got we got Asha, the Prince of Dorne. There's that random guy that's standing next to Sam. And then, I mean, I guess like, I don't know. I mean, Sweet Robin and Royce only kind of loosely. So I would still say the Supreme Court, but man, but yeah, no, it's gonna all come down to an election. But yeah, no, the Supreme Court, like clearly they've decided that they want to, they clearly don't want to actually give Trump immunity because that's insane. Um, and but at the same time, they don't want to say that Trump has no immunity right now because then he could actually go to jail. So they're going to try to delay it until after the election. They're not there yet, but the thing with the trials is there's the Stormy Daniels trial is in like 2 weeks. They could possibly rule that Trump has could go to jail on that one. Not for long, but they could possibly, his crime that he's accused of is like an up to 4 years in jail kind of stuff. And I think Michael Cohen was put in jail for a while, for months at least, for his involvement in it. So like, there's a chance with this upcoming Stormy Daniels one that Trump could be put in jail. But I wouldn't be holding my breath. I'd say that the only thing we can really hope for is that Biden wins the election and civilization survives. Because otherwise, I mean, if Trump's elected, it's just the end. I mean, how can anything continue once you have like a person who's attempted a coup like later getting like elected? Like, oh my god, he's already proven that he's insane and he will do anything. It's done. It's over. um Ever heard the theory that after Lyanna presumably gave John to Ned, he went and had an affair to be able to live with an actual guilt rather than fake it? I have not heard that theory. This is like Ned has to, he's like, oh, they'll totally recognize that I'm lying, so I better sleep with a Shara Dane, so that everybody thinks that I've had this relationship with a Shara Dane, so that everyone will think that John is mine. I've never heard that, but seems a little seems a little weird. It's also weird coming at a time like, also like, what's Ashara doing? Like, he comes into town and Ashara's like, yeah, let's just, oh, you want to hide the baby? Fine, have sex with me so that you'll feel guilty about it, so you can better hide your this baby. I mean, I don't know if all the things for Ashara to go along with or whatever, or Wyla or whatever. Um, uh, I don't know. I don't know. Just to have the ammo, just so that the rumors would go around. Seems a little out there. But I've not seen. By the way, I haven't seen Dune Part 2 yet. No. Um. Okay. Trying to get ahead. Trying to get ahead. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Biden forced an end to the rail workers strike in favor of owners instead of workers. Biden has done some things right, but geez Louise. I mean, at this point, like, um, can you uh I mean, when you think of like, I don't know, there's a lot of things that he got done. Uh and considering the opposition he's had, I don't know. I think he's pretty good record. Obviously, nobody's going to be perfect. So yeah, when I'm saying he does everything, like, no, not everything. Obviously, there's also issues with Israel and Gaza. But for the most part, I am extremely happy with Joe Biden. I'm all in on Joe Biden. There's uh there's nothing really to say there's nothing really to say that you shouldn't vote for Joe Biden. He's got my vote. He's got my vote in the state of Maryland. Like it matters. Will you ever release your secret Elden Ring video? I would love to see your take on the characters and themes parallels in A Song of Ice and Fire. P.S. Love Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Davis was a fucking incredible show. Sometime it's so sad. I mean, I do want to sit down with Carmine and talk about Mrs. Davis. Now we're beginning to forget about it because I'd gotten him to watch it, and then he was like, "Wow, that was really fucking great," and then we haven't talked about it. But like the thing is like if we talk about it, we spoil it for everyone, and it's such a fucking good show to watch, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but man, it's good. It's really good. And will I ever release the secret Elden Ring video? I have to go back and take a look at it. It's actually been many, many months since I worked on it, and I'll have to go back and look at it to see if there's anything even salvageable for a video. But maybe we'll see. Agents of others bringing down the walls. Or Craster's sheep. They could look like sheep. That's the thing, is he does give them sheep. What are the others doing with those sheep? Do they eat regular food? Is that it? But the but yeah, that is a mystery that no one ever talks about. Like, what are the others doing with the sheep? I mean, yeah, there's possibility of the Abu Lail, but like they would just the sheep would freeze. So one thing I remember as well about rereading the prologue is that um, the one of the wildlings dies by being frozen in the tree. So she's the lookout scout, and she just freezes up there. Um, which is, should the others just do that all the time? Like, why even fight people? Like, they could have just came in and just froze Waymar Royce. So I don't know what was or maybe he just thought she was frozen. I don't know, but he says there that she just like froze in the tree, the lookout. Can't they just? But I was just thinking about that. If they, if the others were using sheep to have sex with, like, wouldn't the sheep all freeze? Preston, have you ever watched a Law and Order SVU? I've watched some of the early seasons, so I certainly know about John Mulaney's like whole joke um about Ice-T and everything. But I think this was back, like I watched some of the episodes back when like you're still convinced that the two leads have sexual tension and like can get together. And then apparently it went fucking 20 years. It's been like a fucking season 25 or something. And you're like, oh my God, please, please stop. Law and Order. Oh my God. Um, let's see. Back with. Man, it's always so funny saying like being back in time here. Yeah, that's true. The Dune Jews are just the regular Jews. Um, Who are the Jews in Star Wars? Weren't the people complaining that they thought the the there was some complaints about what was the name of the over of his owner, Anakin's owner? Wasn't it Watto? What's Watto's accent? That was the thing. People have compared Watto's accent to being either Arab, Italian, or Jewish. When he has a hooked nose and a business acumen, fitting a stereotype of the Shylock Tup character. But is this racism part of George Lucas or the viewing audience? Oh, I have no idea. Maybe. What color are Ariane's nipples described? Aren't they described as dark brown? Oh, the best nude scene is Miranda. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. Miranda. What was it about Miranda that just like um there's something about her um her wickedness. Miranda, let's see here. The great Miranda. Doesn't quite give the doesn't quite give her character. I think you have to see her actually like talking in order to get like the full charisma of the Miranda character. I don't see like a single picture that really boils down Miranda for me. Um which is too bad. Let's see here. This is the A Song of Ice and Fire nude scenes and Game of Thrones nude scenes are not the same. That's true. That's true. I'm trying to think like I mean because right Ned has a nude scene right at the beginning of game of A Song of Ice and Fire. You know, we never get our Sean Bean nude scene. Um how big is the other's army? In the show, it's like 13 dudes with the Night King and thousands of whites. It's hard to say how many others there are. We know that there's at least a circle of them in the prologue of A Game of Thrones. So we're not sure how many that is, but I just kind of say like, maybe it's a dozen. Now you could go it another way and say, okay, how many daughters does Craster have? And then you then say that in all likelihood he would have had an equal number of sons, and you could say it from like that sense, because Craster. In the show, he says he's had a whole bunch, but I don't think he ever like gives a number in the book. So he says he has that there's it says he's got what 19 wives. So, assuming that he has had roughly the same amount of sons as daughters, he's got, something, and plus, I imagine some of these women have died, so there's probably some dead. There's probably some dead ones. So, he's got. I'm guessing that he's given. I'm guessing just based on numbers, that he's given at least 25 children to the others. So there should be like, right, couple dozen others just from Craster. So and then who knows if there's any left over from a previous situations. Um, the prequels are unironically great. The dialogue is weird, but that's about it. I would say that the dialogue is weird, but also like there's way too much like slow walking on green screen in the prequels. Um, the some of the acting isn't great, you know. Uh, I don't really think I don't think they're great stories. I mean, like most people, I think Revenge of the Sith is probably the best one, but I don't know. I think a lot of people get um, really nostalgic about stuff, and they can't really step away from it. There's too many people that grew up with Star Wars prequels. They can't kind of divorce it. Um, I like I don't know, like there's a few movies that I remember growing up thinking, oh my god, these are the best things ever, and then I revisited them. I'm like, ooh, I don't know. I'm talking like Never Ending Story and The Secret of Nim and uh, Last Unicorn and stuff. And it's like, you kind of like tell people like, oh my God, they're the greatest things ever. And then you kind of revisit them and you're like, I don't know about that. You kind of realize that you might have been a little biased. I mean, I loved Voltron so much growing up, so much. You watch it today and it's just like, oh my God, it's so boring and horrible. Um, Dune is completely morally incoherent, as Paul makes Paul hero in book one. Says book two he went too far. Then in book three we're told he didn't go far enough. And book four his son is way more. It's yeah. Uh, I mean, I agree. I agree with that. That's I don't know. Like what is Frank Herbert trying to say? Like with all of it, that that we should be trying to control everyone in like through dictatorship in order to you know better face future threats, or that we should keep everyone diverse and not conquer everyone so that we have more ideas about to stop future threats. Like, which is it? Like, should we unify the world or keep the world diverse? Like, even that question is like as simple as that one is. Like, which is better? Like, teamwork or diversity? Like, even that can't even be answered too well. Um, but he never finished the series, so we don't really know what he was trying to say, right? I mean, everybody kind of points to like, oh, like Frank Herbert's like real, like he put everything into God Emperor, and that's the one where you're really supposed to read about it. But God Emperor is about this like horrible, horrible worm man. Um, it tells us how not to live, but he never tells us exactly how to live. He tells us a lot of how not to live. Um, but all that's true. Um, if Trump wins, Biden's Palestine fumble will be a big reason why. Um, so here's a few things. Is that Americans, for the most part, don't care about foreign policy. They just don't care. They don't. I care about foreign policy. Americans don't. Like, so I don't like, the media loves to talk about foreign policy. They think it's really interesting. That's not how Americans vote. Um, Now, if we're really comparing also like uh, Biden's Palestine policy to say Trump's Palestine policy, it's just not even close. Like Trump cut all American funding to Palestinians during his term, and then Biden restored it. Like if you know anything about like specifically like the US policy towards Palestine and Palestinians, like it's just night and day. Like it's just night and day difference. Like all funding and aid was cut during Trump. And then he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Like if Trump were president, he'd be telling Netanyahu to kill more Palestinians. Like he'd be like, you know what? Like Biden's sitting here going, oh, you should probably like hold back. And everyone's like, oh, that wimp Biden being gentle on Netanyahu. Trump would be like, kill more. Like it's just night and day. And like to think that any Muslim in America would be stupid enough to be like, yep, I'm going to vote for Muslim ban guy over some abstract notion that like Biden wasn't tough enough on Netanyahu, as if like he has control over Netanyahu, which he doesn't. Israel is a different country, and it's a different country with weapons and nukes, So like, it's this very like abstract thing to be like, oh, he screwed up on Palestine. Your other candidate is demonstrably worse, demonstrably horribly cruel on Palestine. Okay. Why would any Muslim in America be that dumb to be like, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. Like, and allow like the most anti-Palestine president to ever exist, who had a Muslim ban, who sat there on TV and said that Muslims in New Jersey cheered when 9/11 happened, which, oh my God, never happened. Like what Muslim in America is that dumb? So I just don't buy it. Like I get these like media narratives, oh God, like the most hilarious thing. The Michigan primary, the primaries came in, right? Trump beat Haley like 60-40. And the headlines are like, Trump easily trounces Haley, even though he underperformed his polls. Biden wins 80%. And they're like, oh, noticeable minority protesting against Biden. And you're like, how is 20% against Biden like worse than 40% against Trump? Like it's real simple math. But there's this media narrative of like everything is Biden's in trouble. Like, come on. Like Biden is so much more pro-Palestine than Trump. It's just like outrageous. It's outrageous. And I don't think if Biden loses, which is a possibility, I don't think it has to do with that. I think there's many other things that people vote for that are stronger than the Palestine issue. I care about Palestine. I recognize that the rest of the world doesn't care about Palestine. It's like I care about ice and fire. I recognize that the rest of the world doesn't fucking care about ice and fire. Oh, man. Watto. I'm not racist, but you're racist for thinking racist things are racist. That's a good point. I mean, was Watto just kind of overwhelmingly? I mean, certainly when I watched the prequels, I definitely thought that I didn't think about the Watto thing, but I mean, in retrospect, it seems pretty obvious. But certainly at the time, I was like, why do those people have Asian voices? Like, I definitely thought like the Trade Federation's Asian voices were really weird. Like, why that happened? Yeah, the Chinese characters in the Trade Federation. Like, well, I definitely thought that first view. Um, Leto, Leto had his reasons, I guess. I mean, something was pushing the sexy nuns. We just don't really know what the sexy nuns were running from. You know, it all had to do with sexy nuns. Um, Sir Duncan Idaho, the tall good knight, everyone. Oh, so it's like putting this all together. I'm like, what is this? Oh, like Duncan the Tall, Sir Duncan Idaho, the Tall. Good, good night, everyone. I got it. I got it now. The sheep make the other babies. Like, you think that they could be like incubating inside the sheep? They're using the sheep to um the they're incubating the others inside the sheep somehow. Um they gotta be something with the sheep. I'm trying to think, like, what can you do? Do they need the wool? Do they need they need lambskin? I love the Mortal Kombat movie too. I really loved it. I think I saw Mortal Kombat, I think, in the theaters 3 times. I loved the Mortal Kombat movie. But the I do have to say that the actor that played Johnny Cage and the actress that played um um he did a really good job.
Sonya Blade.
Sonya, yes, of course, you're back for that. But the you know the Billy Madison, or is it, yeah, the Billy Madison woman that's married to the tennis player, right? She um Lyndon Ashby. He was really fucking good as Johnny Cage. And then the uh the Sonya Blade actress, which is the Billy Madison woman, um, Bridget Wilson. She's married to what, Pete Sampras? Still married. Never, not even divorced. 24 years of marriage to Pete Sampras. I even saw the second Mortal Kombat in the movies theater, which was not a great movie. It had better fighting though. Um,
You're forgetting the best actor in that whole fucking thing. It's not either of those two people you mentioned.
are you talking about Christopher Lambert?
No, sir. I'm talking about the guy who plays Shang Tsung, Cary
Oh
Hiroyuki.
yeah, he's good.
The
He's
best.
good. You will die. He's got like super expressive face. I mean, the CGI is horrible in it, but like for the most part, it's a pretty fun, well paced, short movie, right? That gets, I would say it's like pretty close to the first successful video game movie, right?
We've discussed this in the past. It is probably the most faithful adaptation of any video game ever, and it's fucking good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only thing I can really say about it is that there's some added filler for fan service that makes no sense, that would take away from the story, like the reptile thing and stuff like that. But for the most part, like, because the characters are just fun, like the Johnny Cage, Sonya, Liu Kang, like trio is just fun. Um, you can kind of like you can kind of, and like even the Goro fight, which is it's kind of, like there's some really bad acting in it. Um, but whatever, it was okay. I don't know. Maybe my
Fun fact
standards
about
are
that
low.
pillow reptile fight: the first cut of the film did not have Johnny Cage versus Scorpion, nor did it have Liu Kang versus Reptile. They added those in because test audiences found there wasn't enough fighting in Mortal Kombat.
I mean, that's a good call. Very good call. um, a theory that Leto 2 does this to the entire universe to harden everyone to survive the impending threat at the end of the universe. Yeah, we just don't know what that threat is, right? So, like, right, yeah, this idea that like Leto 2, and Leto 2 is really the third Leto, but we don't talk about it. No one talks about the first Leto 2. Leto 2 number 2. Leto 2 number 2. The worm Leto. Like, Carmine, you've never read Dune, have you? Or but you've like vaguely heard me talk about it, right?
I watched this podcast on Spotify. It was exclusive, and these guys basically like went all into it. So I know most of it. I know Duncan Idaho comes back. I know about the
Yeah.
Golas and the sexy nuns and the evil sexy nuns.
Right. It's just, I'd say this, like, Frank Herbert, like, he had the same problem as George R. R. Martin. He was just adding stuff in, um, more and more that just wasn't necessary. Like, was it necessary that the characters have like residual memories from ancestors? Was it necessary that like ghosts come back? Was it, like all of these things? You're like, is any of this necessary? Like the Gulas, I feel like are only necessary to bring Duncan Idaho back over and over again. But yeah, I mean, you get to this point where you're like, what is Leto 2's like master plan? Because he seems to have a master plan, and then it's something to do with sexy nuns. Sexy nuns. Um, Last Unicorn in Zone makes it a great film. Oh, the art. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Want to be depressed? Watch Puff the Magic Dragon cartoon. Have you seen The Last Unicorn, Carmine?
Is that like an '80s children's movie or cartoon that's somehow like
That it
insanely
is.
scary?
Voiced by Christopher Lee, by the way. Um, you should watch it sometime. In fact, um, damn it. It's not. It's not. I was hoping it was on YouTube. It is not. Damn. But there's a lot of scenes on here. No, it's sad. It's sadly not. But it's a very short movie. But I feel like you need to watch it. Um, you need to watch it to. It's just one of those. It's one of those movies where like, to really understand like fantasy and the fantasy genre, you need to have seen it, or else you're in the dark about a lot. You know, it's like seeing Citizen Kane. you know, you need to
Whoa.
see Last Unicorn at some point.
Star-studded cast: Mia Farrow, Jeff Bridges. Whoa, shit. Christopher Lee, of
Mm-hmm.
course. Huh.
Yeah. um, the people who voted uncommitted in a swing state clearly cared about foreign policy. Here's the thing: is that we don't know why they voted uncommitted. And you don't know what that statement means. Like, like what does it mean when 40 people vote for Haley? Like Haley has no chance of winning at this point. Everybody knows that. So what's the message being sent to Trump with a vote for Haley? And yet when the media just went there and said like, oh, Trump like, is waltzing in here over Haley while Biden's in trouble. Well, like is 20%, like is 80% considered a bad position? I don't know. It could be any number and you'd be like, oh, like say it was 95-5. You could still be like, oh, well, in this state that where every vote counts, that 5% is important. Like what the problem is that the thesis that Biden is in trouble, it's neither provable nor falsifiable based on like these results. I don't know if 80-20 is a strong showing. It seems pretty strong. Certainly better than 60-40 that Trump got. You know, like, and like, are they voting over Palestine? Maybe they're voting over immigration. Maybe they're voting over anything. Maybe they're just, maybe they're just third party people. Maybe they're voting over vaccines. Maybe they're big fans of Robert Kennedy. You have no clue. Like, it was an exit poll done, like these are the things that are important. Cause like, there's just not that many people, that are really caring about Palestine. And,
you won't say this, but I'll say this as the resident immigrant here. I'm not religious, raised Catholic, not religious at all. Trump clearly if you look at Project 2025, there's a clear plan of people around Trump who want to make this like a white ethno state, Christian ethno state, whatever. If Muslims want to sit home on election night, that's fine. But when Trump wins, and if it's because of this, you guys should be the first deported, because he will. Even if you were born here, they're gonna find ways to deport you if you're Muslim, because you guys don't fit in the future vision for Trump and his people, which it's a Christian country, and you don't fit. So you should be deported to which country? Who cares? But you will not be here.
Well,
You
they
should be
don't
the first to
care.
be deported.
They don't
They
care.
don't care. You should be the first. I say this as an immigrant myself. You should be the first person. You're the first people to be deported. Those people specifically who chose to sat out, because their vote matters. And you're right about everything you said. The Muslim ban, moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Yeah, no, like I hope that those Muslims in Michigan are smart enough to understand the realities of a Trump presidency. But at the same time, leftists have been making this mistakes for years about Latinos. I would know. I'm in the Latino community, and I know for a fact that Latinos are very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Very conservative. You saw my my comment to that guy Josiah, the political pundit, pondering politics. Josiah, the
Yeah.
YouTuber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Hispanics and Latinos are very conservative. So yeah, if you guys want to make that mistake, sure.
Yeah. It's
But you'll be the first ones gone.
I mean,
And to my fellow Latinos, I hate to break it to you guys, but in their America, you're not one of the good ones. I hate to break it to you. I know you guys like to think you're one of the good ones. You're not. Not in their America.
Did you see on the CPAC thing? Steve Miller spoke, and they're like, "What do we do on immigration?" And he went on a very detailed plan, and he literally described setting up concentration camps for all like non-citizens and having them deported. Like like he talked about like staging areas that they would move everyone to with the US military. Like he was really talking about using military to set up concentration camps for mass deportation.
Did you actually hear the most recent stuff?
Hmm.
he wants to give cops in every city like the authority to do that as well, like to like take round these people up. And people keep saying in the comment in the stream chat, that's a wild take. No, it's not. Because Trump has already put all his stooges in the Supreme Court. All he needs now is the Senate and the House. He can pretty much do
Steve Miller
whatever.
was his primary advisor
Right.
like this is not like a wild take. Like people keep saying like,
Not a
oh, he's
wild
not
take.
going to do that. No, they're going to fucking do that. Like I remember even before so back in 2016 when people are like, oh, Trump's not actually going to try to build the wall. That's just a slogan. No, I mean, he tried. Like he tried. Fucking he really wanted to do it. He's not really going to ban Muslims. Oh no, I mean,
It's the same thing about Roe v. Wade, right? Like Republicans kept saying they're not going to do anything. They did it. They did
people
it.
Actually don't believe, like, because everyone thinks like politicians just lie. No, like politicians really do try to get their platform passed. Like politicians are surprisingly honest about trying to get their platforms passed. You just have to look up their platforms and then they try to get those passed. Like it's pretty clear. Like, you know, they can lie about all sorts of other stuff, you know, but look up a politician's platform and you will see what he actually votes for and what he tries to get passed in government. It's pretty clear, but yeah.
And to the people saying that's a wild take, it's not that far off to think that they're going after illegal immigrants. Okay, fine. But is that really such a wild to take to think that they will do mental gymnastics and try to push it a little further to people that don't follow their ideology? Is it really that hard to think that they wouldn't, like, just, even if it's an American-born Muslim, deport this person or send them away or put them in camps via what China's doing with the Uyghurs? Like, is that really, like, far off from, like, Trump's craziness? And this one person in their stream chat is saying shit like, well, why are you saying, like, this one party? What about the party you support? The party I support is not calling for bans.
The party I support didn't try to overthrow the U.S. government. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, he tried to overthrow the U.S. government. like what the fuck? Like, I can't believe we're in a situation where a traitor who tried to overthrow the US government, that people are actually like saying, oh, he won't be that bad. Like, he tried to overthrow the US government. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, holy shit. Like, how are we in this situation where you have to actually like say to somebody, no, the person that tried to overthrow the US government is not going to be actually that bad. Like, how are we in this situation? Like,
well, it's this person, Pai Mei over here, which, by the way, I love Pai Mei, great character from Kill Bill. This person says, I never understood that the other team stops every good thing your team wants to do, but the other team is so dangerous and will ruin your world. Can't you stop them like they stop you? Dude, I wish Democrats had the fucking balls. I wish they had the balls. I would suck those balls if they had them, but they don't. Democrats, for the most part, are pussies, and they don't play dirty like fucking Republicans do. Marjorie Taylor Greene showed Hunter Biden's cock on the fucking, come on, like, Lauren Boebert has the audacity to call Biden's family the Biden crime family. Her husband is a pedophile. She was arrested for jerking off a guy in a movie theater full of kids, and her own son is running around robbing this woman. Did you hear about this? What her son did? Robbed a woman with a brain tumor and robbed this woman of her last fucking money. Like, come on. It's all like bullshit. It really is.
I mean, it's I think one of the weakest, most cowardly positions is the both siderism, like crap. Like, it's very clear. It's very clear that one side is better than the other. It's very clear that it's very clear which side is horrible and which side will bring doom. Okay? It's not even fucking close. One side is against democracy, tried to overthrow the US government, banned abortion, stacked the Supreme Court, is talking about building concentration camps. Like, come fucking on. Like, it's like cartoonish at this point. Like, it's just cartoonish. You know, like, I'm just like, it's over. Like, if like, honestly, if Joe Biden doesn't win in November, it's fucking over. It's fucking over for America. It's Done. Put a fork in it. You said once A Song of Ice and Fire is the most ambitious series in decades. What plot twists first impressed you the most? Gush a bit for us, LOL. Also, Rhaegar is Mance. Give me the Tracking the Rubies video. Okay, so I mean, if I'm gonna go gushing, like the thing that made me fall in love with A Song of Ice and Fire is, you know, it was, you know, getting to the end of A Dance with Dragons and being like, oh my god, the cliffhanger, where is things going? And um and then going online and finding like Bran Voss and him showing that no, all of these little elements that you're seeing in A Dance with Dragons were planted earlier. You just had to look. And like, you know, it's stuff that I didn't even think about, you know. I wasn't thinking about like Manderley ships, you know. I wasn't thinking about like you know, the Hornwoods and how this all, like, I'd forgotten all of that, you know. And going back and being like, oh my gosh, like he's right. Like all of these little elements are woven in there and are coming back, and he hasn't forgotten about it. And I think, you know, then you kind of go into this like high point where you're like, oh, George thought of all of this stuff. He's going to think of everything. All of the plot threads are going to come together. You know, George proved himself to be a genius, and then you kind of assume that he's superhuman. But man, like I loved how you can go back and you can go line for line, and there's so much time, like so much like beauty to each line that he writes. Like if you slow down, and the thing is, for most books that size, like, you know, beach novels and stuff, you're page turning. You know, you're reading that John Grisham novel, and it's just going, and you don't think about it. You're like, this is a book, and I need to get to the end. And it just surprised me that he had so much care in each line. And once I slowed down and I was like, oh wow, that's beautiful. Once you take it real slow, it's you can take the story slow, and you can take the story fast, and it's good both ways. You can go through the story and only care about the main characters, or you can go through the story and start watching for all the guys in the background, and that's great too. The fact that he's able to write those dual story like that is the thing that really impressed me. Because one thing if you have like a complicated story with a million characters, and if you're not paying attention to those million characters, everything falls apart. Like that's not this story. You can ignore the characters and it still works. But like I'm just looking now at you can kind of look at like, let's see here, hold on a second. You can kind of go here and go, okay. Sir Waymar met it with steel, and when the blades met, there was no ring of metal on metal, only a high, thin sound at the edge of hearing, like an animal screaming in pain. Royce checked a second blow, and a third, then fell back a step, another flurry of blows, and fell back again behind him, to right, to left, all around him. The watchers stood patient, faceless, silent, the shifting patterns of their delicate armor making them all but invisible in the wood. Yet they made no move to interfere. You know, it's just like there's so much there, and yet it's also so beautiful. And it's like, you know, it was just one of those moments where I was like, oh, I can like stop and smell the roses. Like if you stop and smell the roses, there's so much in there with his stuff, which is, you know, which made me really like fall in love with everything. Just the complexity and the detail that you can almost take any sentence and be like, that needs to be there. Or he really thought about that line. He really thought about it. You know, I think you can take it to an extreme. Like there's definitely some lines that are sloppy because it's a huge fucking book. Like there was a time where it's like, no, everything is perfect. I'm going to believe he's God and that every line of this is a sacred text. But I've walked back from there. But still, though, you can go through and every line, like he's put so much time in, and it's, for the most part, beautifully written. So for the most part, there's so much detail. We're at this point where we found all of the holes and figured out the things that don't make sense, but there's so much still that he put together. So, yeah, I mean, as for Rhaegar's Mance, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think so. I mean, certainly it's paralleled, but I don't know. They're paralleled, but I don't know if they can be the same. All powerful shut in. Just this generation's Dune Messiah messaging. Paul and Leto had all the answers, and we're fixing the universe. Yeah, I think there's a bit of that, especially with Leto. It's funny though. I think it was like I think it was a Movie Bob video that he did on like the Matrix and the very dangerous message of everything you're doing right now is exactly what you should be doing and you're doing the right thing kind of thing. Sometimes I think about that with the heroes in these stories, like Paul should hate the Harkonnens and should want to kill them, and that happens to be the right thing to do, until it's not, So,
well, Preston, don't you know, like Atreides, Harkonnen, both sides are the same. I mean, if you really think about it, both sides are the same.
Both sides.
Oh, by the way, good news. Haley
that?
beat Trump in Washington, D.C., District of Columbia delegates. She won.
Nice.
Nice.
The four registered Republicans in the District of Columbia. Oh man. Jared Leto too. Leto the second was the second for the same reason Aegon the second was toddler Leto, and Aegon the Uncrowned didn't count. That's true. That the first Leto dies, so they just get another Leto. More Letos. Of course, there's a. I haven't read the Kevin J. Anderson stuff, but is there another Leto? There's a Gula Leto at the end of that.
I think they all like recreate Jessica and Leto and all these people, and they go back to Caladan.
Yeah. Mati. Okay. Yeah, You Last Unicorn and stuff like the animated Hobbit aren't great movies, but the art is gorgeous. It is. It's very, very kind of memorable. The running how Trump is worse was the strategy in 2016. I think people are forgetting that there was this huge FBI thing where they claimed that Hillary was guilty of all of this email scandal, and then it turned out to be nothing, and this was all like done a week before the election. Like people are forgetting about this interference, or they're forgetting about like the Russian bots that were putting all of the the ads on Facebook that said like Muslims for Hillary and stuff, and that all like went. Like people are forgetting about all the Russian interference and the FBI stuff and all of this. Everything is just like no, it was just it was the there was nothing great about Hillary and they were running on a she's better than Trump thing. No, Hillary is fucking awesome. Like and like you know, it's just she got a lot of votes. You know, and there was a lot of weird interference in this time, you know, at the time, but people, you know, I'm not sure what these things like. I mean, the Democratic establishment is under the impression that they can make their problems go away so long as they wag their fingers hard enough and nothing else. I don't understand like you're like we can look up like Joe Biden achievements. Like I just don't like let's see. Like he passed the bill that lowered drug prices. He um he led us through the pandemic. He had the rebuilding the infrastructure bill. He had benefits for toxic exposed workers. He had the Inflation Reduction Act. You know, like I just don't understand like how everybody just forgets about all the things that he did. And then it's just like, well, Democrats don't do anything for us. Like, what the like what like go just like look at like all you have to do is go through the achievements and then say, well, what didn't get passed and see what like Republicans voted against. I don't know. It's just so odd. Like people are forgetting about the lowering the drug prices and the investing in infrastructure bill, you know? And it's like, oh, the problem's like people like the booming economy and the lowest unemployment ever, you know, like the low unemployment. Like what do you fucking want? Like, what do you fucking want? You know, you just, I mean, you expecting like women, like people to come around and give you oral sex. Like what do you want from the guy?
Yes. Well, that's so there's this YouTuber named DJ Vlad, and he had on Aries Spears many years ago, and Aries Spears was saying the same shit about Obama and how black people were not satisfied with Obama at the end of his term, because and Aries Spears was like saying like, what do you guys want? Like you want him? Like, you want like coupons to Popeye? That's what he said, not me. Like, what do you guys want? You know, like. Obama like set the trend. Now we can have more, you know, people like him come into this thing. Yeah, I get same thing for Biden. Like, what do people want? I'm honestly like, I'll be very real with you.
Biden, I don't know. Like, and the alternative is literally death. Like the alternative is like you know, like what do you want taken away from you? It's just so stark and clear that it's just puzzling to me. Like it's just really puzzling. But as for this, like, no matter how complex, the book doesn't take 10 years plus. Oh no, look, George there's personal issues, man. So like, he hasn't been working on the book. Okay. He hasn't been working on the book. He's got something personal going on in his life. So it's just, just accept that. And then it kind of feels better. Because, like, honestly, say you had a project that you haven't finished for 12 years. Okay. 13 years, you know? Would is the first thing that would you jump to like, oh, you didn't do something for 13 years? Like, would you really claim like laziness, or would you claim like something else happened in your life that's preventing you from doing it? 13 years, I'm saying something preventing him from doing it. There's something personal in his life that's preventing him from finishing the book. once you kind of like have sympathy for that, you know, you'll feel better about it. But I don't, you know, we don't know the specifics about his life, but I'm sure there's something very important and pressing that went ahead of it.
Not to rip on Dante, but Dante, if you've actually read any of his recent blog posts, or even seen any of our videos covering his recent blog posts, you can clearly see that my man is going through stuff.
Definitely going through stuff. Definitely going through
Oh,
stuff.
by the way, real quick on the Biden thing, I know a couple of things he could do that would like
Mm.
people would see and feel it. Look, I'm being legit now. I'm being
Okay.
serious. Besides lowering rent, like forcibly lowering rent,
Mm.
he could lower DoorDash fees. Shit, shit millennials and Gen Z care about. Lower DoorDash fees and Grubhub fees and Uber Eats fees and those fees on Ticketmaster. Like shit, shit millennials really care about. Like yeah.
Right. I think they don't have them so much anymore, but like 20 years ago, like ATM fees were like the major annoyance to America. And like Al Franken wrote a book like where the candidate his one issue is getting rid of ATM fees and he wins, you know? Like it's got to be something like that. Like, oh, what really annoys people? Oh.
No, I'm
Um
being like what really annoys people: DoorDash fees, Ticketmaster fees.
yeah.
Seriously, the rent thing. Come on, let's fucking get in there with the rent thing.
Oh yeah,
Lower the rent forcibly. Be a dictator. I'll vote for you for be a king and lower those rent fees. Something like God. Yeah,
yeah.
I have to pay a fucking convenience fee on paying my water bill. Why the fuck do I got to do that?
Hidden fee, yeah,
Convenience
hidden
fee.
fees like or what if you banned when you go to fast food and they turn the iPad around and there's the tip button and you feel
Holy
awkward.
shit!
Okay?
Now we're
What if
cooking
they
with fire
banned
here.
that? I'd be like, oh, thank God, because I'm fucking done feeling awkward of them going, shh, really? Do you want me to tip at a fast food place? Fuck.
Dude, yes, thank you. Yes, that now we're cooking. We're cooking with fucking fire here. Yes.
Things to win people over. If they got rid of tipping in America in general, I think people and like shifted it so that they get a livable wage. I think people would be happier. I think people hate the tipping. I think they
Mexican
also
Dan
hate
is like,
bargaining for cars.
this guy Mexican Dan is like, is that really what you think will convince young voters, Carmine? Bro, I guarantee you right now, if Biden came out and said everybody who votes for me will get free V-Bucks on Fortnite, yes. Yes, you will see a fucking blue wave like you've never seen it before. It'll be like that scene from that fucking asteroid movie with Bruce Willis, where the asteroid comes down, that fucking tsunami. Yes, that is what you will get. Free V-Bucks for everybody who votes for Biden.
Waymar autocorrects to Walmart. Do you think George R. R. Martin was trying? What was George R. R. Martin trying to say about capitalism in the prologue? I wish there was something hidden like that. Waymar, for the most part, like represents this highborn, like he just represents like a highborn fuck who's like trying not to disappoint people on his first mission, who should be listening to Garrett, but who has all the experience, but because of the class difference, like is uh is is being a dick. That's it. Hillary is awesome, said only Preston ever. Hillary, no, first of all, you're living in a bubble if you think that like there isn't a massive love for Hillary Clinton among a certain segment of the population, right? She doesn't just get out there. She like that's the thing is like, yeah, if you're hanging around a bunch of like young guys who are somewhat or moderate or conservative, yeah, they're gonna be like, I don't know about this Hillary. Hillary is loved by a certain segment. First of all, loved by women, also loved by older people. Okay, so you're living in a bubble if you think that like people don't love Hillary. They do love Hillary. Okay, do you understand how many people are in Pantsuit Nation? Do you know what Pantsuit Nation is? Because it was fucking enormous. Okay, um, so Hillary is very 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 smart. Um, I agreed with nearly all of her positions. She would have been a great president. But alternate universe.
This this fucking guy, this fucking guy in theory of ice and this fucking guy in theory of ice and fire in your stream chat, motherfucker. Our entire conversation, no matter what it is, sticks to ice and fire. The entire stream breaks conversation to tell me to go make my own spaghetti. Fuck you, man. Go fuck yourself. Stick to ice and fire. Stick to ice and fire, you piece of shit. Get out of here.
Oh, court packing makes no sense to me as a negative thing. How can more judges make a worse decision? Weird argument. I think it depends. Yeah, I think it depends on what they mean by court packing. I think some people, when they think court packing, they just mean shoving a bunch of people on of one side to shift all of the opinion and decision. So when I talked about earlier about uh, um, the Republicans and Mitch McConnell, I said court packing for him because they were able to shove in three Trump justices. Now I understand what you're saying, like court packing, like if you packed on more positions, wouldn't it be better? Absolutely. There should be 50. There should be 50 slots on the Supreme Court. That's ridiculous that it's 9. But I think that
wait. 50. Was that you that said that? I think it was for those of you who don't know, Miss Mira Reeds, she is in the stream chat and she's a lawyer. We spoke to her like a couple days ago. She's a lawyer. I think it was her who told me, or maybe someone else who told me about instead of 50, we should have 13 because aren't there like 13 districts, circuit districts or something? I'm sure Mira will
I think
correct
circuit districts have 13 or something, but whatever. I mean, the more the better. The idea is that you don't want, if they're lifetime appointments, you don't want the death of one person causing like such massive shifts. Like we had one person die, and abortion was banned in America. Like that's how fucked up our system is. One person die. Like had she died 4 months later, abortion not banned. like that's it. Like one person. That's not how any system should work. That's the thing. It's not a system. That's based on personalities, right? You want a system.
Can't we just make it to where if they accept bribes, we can impeach them? Like Clarence Thomas?
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. Yeah, this I'll agree. I mean, Hillary always lacked some charisma, but she would have been a fucking phenomenal president, and she would have earned it too. It's true. It's true. I agree with that. Yeah, sure. I mean, Hillary. Everybody makes mistakes. No one runs a perfect game. But I think it was. It was. I mean, people bring up the fact that she like didn't visit Wisconsin and things like that. And it's like, sure, but it's also hard when there's the media isn't helping and the Russians are doing crazy things and all sorts of stuff is going on. And there's a lot there's an entire other group of people that are fighting against you. You do what you can. But
that's what Mira said here. 12 circuit courts of appeal instead of 50 judges. We'd have 10 to 50-year term limits and mandatory retirement afterwards. They can go teach at Harvard. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. The rent is too damn high. Better dental care, universal health care. By the way, the person that brought back like universal health care to the forefront was Hillary Clinton when she was first lady. She's the one that like pushed it, and then Bill tried to get it done and failed. But in the end, like, they kind of like Democrats kind of learned the lesson of like what they could push and what they couldn't, and who they could fight and who they couldn't. Like, don't they tried to fight big pharma back then, and it just wasn't going to happen. So Obamacare is obviously better than nothing, but Obamacare, has a lot of the like its development learned a lot from the Clinton attempt at things. Maybe raise wages on the working class. I mean, that's what the Democrats try to promote, raising minimum wage all the time. Republicans are the ones that are always against it. So U.S. tipping culture started in the Great Depression. I think yeah, I agree with all of this. The end of tipping will be messy, but it's a band-aid that needs to be ripped off. Yeah, it's the same with like bargaining for cars. Like, it's just no one likes doing it, man. No one likes doing it.
I'll be very real with you though. Like tipping, ooh, depending on where you get tipped. Ooh, I used to work at this gas station in
Yeah,
Jersey, and for those of you who don't know, in New Jersey, you don't pump your own gas. The attendants
right.
do it for you. My job was to sell lottery tickets, but until the other guys arrived to do the station shit, I was outside pumping gas and selling lottery tickets. And because it was Jersey, everybody tipped, even if it's $1. I would like be out there for like 4 hours. I would come back inside and sell lottery tickets. By the end of the night, I'd have like what, $80, $90
Jeez.
average a day. I worked for 6 days a week, so that was not bad.
Yeah. um, Benjamin Theory. He is living with the others and will be used for exposition. He has learned the others' language and can communicate between the factions. Huh. So like Benjamin comes with a crackling voice. He's like, everyone's like, yes, yes. But other than some sort of like telepathy or something, I can't see how else communication with the others could be achieved other than that, right? Other than with some sort of um, person that can speak their language. But that's funny. It's funny to think about. Um, but you're right. There's not many others that can do that. The only way to get the exposition right is to either have like Bram in a tree, like observing stuff, right? Or have Benjen or Stone Snake. I mean, like that's about it. I mean, maybe there could be. We don't know if whites can talk, do we? I mean, fire whites can talk, so maybe ice whites can talk as well. So an ice white could possibly do some exposition, but um, man, nobody could afford to go out to eat if they stopped tipping. Can you imagine up cost of food if you had to pay real wages of servers? Well, the idea is that it's the same amount of money. Okay, the idea is that like it's not it's not that I'm looking at tipping or anybody's looking at tipping and saying that I'm going to spend less if tipping goes away. I'm saying the whole getting the price and then calculating something out and having to think about the social situation and like determine if this is a place where I ought to tip or not is just like annoying to Americans. Okay. So like we have this situation now where you've got some restaurants where you sit down and a waiter comes to your table. You know that you should tip in those situations, right? And then there's situations where you go to the counter and you order and then somebody brings it to your table. Do you tip in those situations? And then there's situations where you go to the counter and then they give you the food there. Most of the time you don't tip in those situations, but Sometimes you do. And then there's McDonald's where you don't. You know, like um so like figuring out like when should I tip? Do I tip this person? Do I like I like when you go to the freaking farmers market, like they turn around the pad and have a tip option. And I'm like, am I supposed to tip you? Like what? Like what what? You know, like you're constantly in a minefield trying to figure out like what the amount of tip is. Like when I get a haircut in America, do I like what percentage do I give? I I, I don't know. Like is it the 15%? You know? What about to a taxi driver? Like what's the percentage? Like no one knows these things. People talk about them. They're like, like if you get a maid, like do you tip them? Like like no one knows. Like if what if if it's a one time cleaning, or if what if they come like many times, like is it a regular thing, like no one knows in America, like they and everyone's just sitting there being like, what do I do, so just fucking get rid of all of it, get rid of all of it. And so the idea is that you're paying the same amount for these food for the servers. It's just that it would be built in. It would be built into the cost. Um, but man, um, it shouldn't even be the job of the court to uphold abortion. They should have made it law for the last 50 years. Um, the I'm just trying to think of like the right time. The problem is that like you've got um in order to get a law passed in America, you have to have um 60 senators, because you have to have a filibuster proof, and so having 60 senators is super super rare. And then you need to like um then you have to have a president of the same party. So you have to have the House, and then you have to have 60 senators, and then you have to have the president of the same party. Now, not that that doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen very much. It did happen with Obama in his first term. Um, However, he used that to push Obamacare. So it's like what it's like what you're dealing with your time. So you're saying like, oh, they should have done these sorts of things. Well, you only have a certain amount of time and certain perfect situation to get certain things passed, and that's the main problem. It's I'm trying to think of like when else, like right now, like Biden wouldn't be able to get like anything passed because the Republicans control uh, the House, and he doesn't have 60 senators. So like, how are you supposed to do these things? Um, any last things, Carmine? Because I might head to bed.
No, we should definitely record something. I'll get
Oh, wait,
Ness
I
on.
got
We'll talk
something
about
here.
Avatar.
Yeah. Yeah, Merrick Garland appointed a Trump supporter who was used an official investigation to stoke the Biden is senile theory. I think people can take the Democrats reenacting the frog and the scorpion story so many times. It's true. I mean, you know, Democrats will like destroy, like sabotage themselves to like look fair, Um, and when the other side is just not is not being a honest partner, trustworthy partner in sorts of things. But yeah, Merrick Garland kind of an idiot. Yeah. But yes, and James Comey is the reason Hillary isn't president. That is true as well. Both of those things. I don't tip Mr. Pink. I mean, that's only funny because as a one man person, you can't make that change, which is kind of the ridiculous thing. It's like I'm not going to stop tipping, but that's why you need a law to kind of do it all together. Oh, I'm asked to tip at Starbucks. I loudly ask, I only tip at union friendly stores. Is this Starbucks pro union? Oh, yeah. Okay. Why didn't Waymar's sword shatter immediately? That is a question. That is an interesting question. I don't know. I guess that I mean, it could be that the others have control over their ability to freeze things. And one could say like, oh, maybe Waymar was doing well, and so then he made things colder. But he'd already slashed. I think he'd already slashed Waymar before the sword breaks. Swords met. His blade was white with frost. The others danced. Then his parry came a beat too late, and the pale sword bit through the ring mail beneath the arm. So, it only breaks. He lifts his frost-covered longsword and he swirls it around with a slash, and the other's parry is lazy, and then the steel shatters. So it was like completely unnecessary at that point because Waymar is already dying, and he's already parried it. So there's like no reason for the other to want to have the shatter. So I don't know. I mean, I have to look into like the brittleness of metal and like why it was getting to that point. But I mean, I guess maybe the metal over time becomes more brittle, and it hadn't, it was brittle, but it just didn't break. But yeah, that was about it. Okay, Carmine, thank you for staying with me. Thank you everyone for staying with me. And
You're getting off already? It's the night's still young, man. What do you mean?
only 3.5 hours. Only 3.5 hours. Yeah.
No. So, do you want me to get like Ness and Trey to also take your fucking test? Because that test is insane.
Yeah.
We also
so everyone can be angry at me.
I'm also down to record some Shogun and some Dune 2, and I'll get Ness on. We'll do some Avatar combos, and I'm also waiting for new photos from Hollywood Reporter, I think it is, or Entertainment Weekly for House of the Dragon Season 2.
All right, sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you everyone for being with me this long. I will talk to you soon. All right, later.